agency says no amendments have been made and warns that the circulating information is false and misleading. SASSA spokesperson Paseka Letsatsi has urged the public not to share unverified claims, saying they could cause unnecessary confusion and tension.
Has appealed to the members of the public to stop sharing misleading information about the COVID-19 social relief of distress.
And finally, UN Chief Antonio Guterres has suggested the United States believed its power mattered more than international law. He was speaking to the BBC. The Secretary General was in London over the weekend to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the very first General Assembly meeting in the British capital. He told an audience on Saturday that powerful forces were lining up to undermine global cooperation. Showan Bryce Peace reports.
Guterres told the BBC that there were those that believed that the power of law should be replaced by the law of power. He explained that the UN had no leverage in solving global conflicts, but that power resided with the big nations. In the context of recent United States actions in Venezuela and towards Greenland, the SG argued that in the present policy of the United States, there was a clear conviction that multilateral solutions were not relevant and that what mattered was the exercise of power over international norms. In a speech on Saturday, Guterres said it was manifestly in the interests of those who held the most power to be on the front lines of reforming the international security and financial architecture.
Recapping the top story, Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chilwani says preliminary investigations into the cause of the scholar transport crash in Vanderbijlpark indicates that their taxi driver was attempting to overtake multiple vehicles when a head-on collision with a truck occurred. The crash claimed the lives of 14 learners. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it is soccer action. Mamelodi Sundowns' depth continuing to shine as the youngsters stepped up in the absence of the AFCON stars to secure a win over Albert College. And in cricket, the Joburg Super Kings have booked their place in the SA20 playoffs. We'll have the details just before 6:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good morning. Our top story, big taxi crash going into Cape Town. It's on the N2 just before the N7 Jakes Kerwell Drive exit. Traffic is heavy. It's all the way back beyond the airport and back into Khayelitsha. A really bad set of conditions there on the N2 inbound. Super heavy this morning. Also Baden-Powell Drive staying in Cape Town closed today at Monwa BC. That's due to thick sand. The wind really blowing in the last 24 hours and so much sand up on Baden-Powell. Authorities have had to close it. A little bit of mist lingering around parts of Ekurhuleni, particularly along the R21 corridor around Tembisa, just by the Bopsfontein exit. Take it easy up that way, please. And Durban, if you're heading off the south coast up towards the airport, clear conditions, no major problems. At this stage, it will start to get busy as traffic volumes increase through the roadworks. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 7 minutes after 6. Today is Tuesday, the 20th of January, 2026. Live and direct from Auckland Park here in Johannesburg. We are SAFM on 104 to 107 nationwide. The world you're waking up to is significantly different from what it was when you went to bed last night. And that's because key news and current affairs developments here at home, around the continent and around the world have continued to shape, carve and contour your world with every passing minute. That's why we get here bright and early to fully brief you on those developments as you prepare to start your day. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief. What a dark day to live through. What a tragic day to live through. What a traumatic day to live through as a nation. What a day it was yesterday. Yet another devastating reminder of how fragile scholar transport safety remains after the Vanderbijlpark crash that has now claimed the lives of 14 pupils. with police confirming that the minibus that was transporting them was overloaded. And as you heard there from N. Musa talking about the MEC of Education in Gauteng, talking about how that vehicle, that minibus taxi, that scholar transport vehicle was allegedly trying to overtake multiple vehicles when that incident occurred. I call it incident. It's a crash. I don't call it an accident. A lot of these incidents are preceded by a violation. So to call it an accident is to call it an oops that could not have been anticipated, that was unexpected. It happened by accident. A lot of it, as you're hearing, overloading is said to have been a factor, attempting to overtake multiple vehicles. And this is not to prosecute the case at all, but it's just simply to say that it's safer to just call it a crash than to determine that it is an accident. So that crash has claimed the lives of 14 people. What a traumatic day. The scenes that were playing themselves out, the pain that was pouring out, the sheer raw pain of those parents trying to determine what happened to my child. My child was supposed to be going to school and was meant to be coming back. And how that was transported and communicated so powerfully, so traumatically to so many of us across the country who are parents, who have children in our lives, even if they are not our own kids, who care about the well-being of this society, the well-being of children in this society. It really, really was a traumatic day. So we'll just look back on that now. We'll be talking at about 10 to 6 this morning. We'll talk to Xolani Dominic Nkosi, who is the chairperson of the South African Scholar Transport Association in Gauteng's Ekurhuleni region. We'll just be reflecting on some of the key issues that have come through. And that's because this is not the first incident that has happened, right? It's the deadliest in a worrying run of incidents over the past year, from the Imbali tragedy in Pietermaritzburg last year, where 5 children died after a suspected brake failure sent a taxi into a preschool, to the Carltonville crash that later claimed the life of a grade R learner also last year. And then we had that incident at West Park Road in Johannesburg, where the vehicle rolled over and injured dozens of pupils who were being transported. So we'll put all of that into focus at about 10 to 7 this morning with Xolani Dominic Nkosi, chairperson of the South African Scholar Transport Association in Gauteng's Ekurhuleni region. And then the other big story that we are focusing on, Iran's 3 naval ships may have left our shores, but the political governance and diplomatic storm they've left behind for government is only intensifying. At the center of the fallout from Exercise Will for Peace 2026 are allegations that the SANDF, the National Defense Force, failed to carry out a direct presidential instruction to bar Iran from participating in the multinational naval drills which were happening in False Bay. The Defense Minister, Angie Motshekga, as you'll know, has confirmed that President Ramaphosa's instruction was clear and it was communicated to all and agreed to, and has now appointed a board of inquiry to determine whether that instruction was ignored or misrepresented or misinterpreted. Opposition parties are fuming, as you can imagine, saying that this issue raises fundamental questions about civilian oversight of the military, while the defense analysts warn that the episode risks undermining the country's stated foreign policy of non-alignment. So we'll focus on that at about 6:45 this morning. We'll speak to Spiwe Dlamini, Head of Communication at the Department of Defense, also, of course, speaking on behalf of the SANDF. Lastly, let me flag the story. At 8:10, we'll be in conversation with David Harrison. There's an interesting piece that David Harrison has written in Daily Maverick. While most of us were not paying much attention over the December and festive season and that whole craze, a truly important development quietly took shape in the space of child and teenage welfare and protection. Cabinet has approved the National Strategy to Accelerate Action for Children. So it's called NSAAC. It's Billed as a forward-looking framework that is designed to tackle the deep-rooted challenges that millions of children in this country and adolescents face every day. The strategy lays out 10 national priorities, from closing the food gap and boosting early learning to protecting children and teens from abuse and harmful substances and ensuring that young people access healthcare. Among some of the conversations, for example, is about how to bring the child support grant back to the food poverty level. But it just coincides that we're having this conversation about this national strategy to accelerate action for children on a day that we're discussing a tragedy involving children that has at its heart policy choices and policy decisions that we made about how children access schools. So a truly timely conversation as well. David Harrison is my guest at about 7:10 to unpack all of that. As far as the team is concerned, we are at full strength once again with N. Musa giving you your half-hourly news updates throughout the 3 hours. Zaikan has all your sporting action covered. Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief is coming through in the next few minutes, and Dauleng Lechela with your business, economics and market updates throughout the show. And of course, as always, Sipho Mantula with a quick whistle-stop tour around the continent and her diaspora in his Africa update that's coming up at about 20 to 7 this morning. This is the morning brief. Context, consequence, and conversation starting now.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
All right, let's get it started with Melissa Puta, who's got your morning brief in brief. Melissa, good morning to you. Let's start with news out of Action SA and their preparations for the local government elections. News to do with one of their candidates, the candidate for mayor of Ekurhuleni. What has happened with Xolani Khumalo?
Morning, Thulasizwe. So Action SA has strongly defended its Ekurhuleni candidate and councillor Xolani Khumalo following his arrest on charges of assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm and pointing a firearm. The party maintains the charges stem from Khumalo's anti-crime activism and were laid by a suspected drug dealer previously arrested for illegal ammunition but released without prosecution. Action SA's national chairperson, Michael Beaumont, criticized the SAPS for targeting Khumalo instead of organized criminals, insisting the party will intensify its campaign behind him. Khumalo handed himself over to police and was later granted a 2,000 rand bail and is expected to return to court in February, with Action SA vowing to stand by him throughout the legal process.
And the story out of the Western Cape highlighting just the contrasts of nature, flooding in the north and the eastern parts of the country, yet a very bad situation as far as the drought and water situation is concerned in parts of the country like Knysna.
Yes, so residents of Knysna in the Western Cape are facing a worsening water crisis as Atterkloof Dam drops to just 18% capacity. Infrastructure failures continue and water consumption remains above safe levels. Some areas are already experiencing supply disruptions due to burst pipes and failed pumps rather. The emergency measures include borehole drilling has been initiated by local councillor Peter Bester. He's also warning that the situation cannot be resolved quickly and urges stronger community awareness so that everyone can work together in order to make sure that they have enough water or can at least sustain their water supply until the proper measures are put in place.
Yeah. Lastly, Melissa, this story, I think the skeptics and cynics among us will say, what else did you expect? That whole cleanup that happened ahead of the G20 in and around Joburg, that sudden burst of governance energy at local government, the skeptics and cynics would say, what else did you expect once the G20 was done and dusted?
Of course. So following public complaints and videos showing the deteriorating conditions in Johannesburg only 2 months after the G20 Leaders Summit took place, Mayor Dada Morero has come under scrutiny and has admitted himself that the city's inner city is regressing. Morero had previously pledged to maintain improvements made by the summit through a high-impact program, but critics say that the city has failed to sustain service delivery, citing power outages, poor roads, and litter. Critics also noted that many improvements were short-term, tied to the G20, and will not last without deeper structural and governance reforms. Morero is also facing internal ANC challenges as he is no longer the party leader in Johannesburg, with calls for him to step down in favor of the regional chairperson, Loyiso Masuku, though these calls have been rejected. Secretary General Fikile Mbalula. So it will be interesting to see what he does in order to address this issue.
All right, thank you for that, Melissa Puta, with the morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the morning brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So as far as the weather goes, I've got 4 warnings to give you, but there's also an advisory that is quite important that I must highlight. So if you don't mind, I'll do exactly that and then give you your highs and lows for the major centers. The first warning is an orange level 4 warning, and it is in place over the northern parts of Limpopo. It is for disruptive rain with heavy downpours leading to flooding of susceptible roads, settlements, low-lying bridges and areas, and risk to life. The second one is a yellow level 2 warning, and it is in place over the eastern and western parts of Limpopo and along the escarpment and lowveld of Mpumalanga. And it is for disruptive rain with heavy downpours leading to localized flooding of susceptible roads, settlements, low-lying bridges and areas, major roads affected but can be used, increased travel times, that over those regions that I mentioned, that is the western parts of Limpopo and along the escarpment and lowveld of Mpumalanga. Then we have a yellow level 2 warning, and it is in place for the central and eastern parts of the northwest, central parts of the Free State, southwestern parts of Gauteng, as well as the extreme southwestern parts of Limpopo. It is for severe thunderstorms leading to localized flooding of susceptible roads, low-lying areas and bridges, large amounts of small hail, and localized damage to infrastructure due to damaging winds. So that is the yellow level 2 warning in place for those regions that I mentioned. Lastly, a yellow level 1 warning that is in place between Cape Columbine and Cape Agalas. That yellow level 1 warning is for damaging coastal winds resulting in difficulty in navigation at sea. Then there's an advisory that says very hot and uncomfortable conditions are expected over the western parts of the Namakwa Municipal District in the Northern Cape, as well as the west coast and southwestern parts of the Cape Winelands Municipal District in the Western Cape. Your highs and lows. Pretoria will start at 16, coming up to 23. Johannesburg, 16 to 25. Vereeniging, 18 to 24. Mbombela, 17 to 20. Polokwane, 18 to 23. Mahikeng, 17 to 25. Vryburg, 16 to 31. Bloemfontein, 15 to 31. Kimberley, 17 to 33. Uppington, 19 to 37. Cape Town, 17 to 28. George, 14 to 23. Gqeberha, 16 to 25. East London, 16 to 24. Durban, 20 to 26. Richards Bay, 20 to 25. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg, 14 to 23.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
22 minutes after 6. In fact, it's coming up to 23 minutes after 6. It's that time of the year again when a sizable South African contingent, clad in those unmistakable flag-colored scarves, heads for the snow-covered slopes of Davos Klosters in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum. And every year, the same questions keep coming up. Why do we send a high-powered team at great expense defense, what has it delivered in the past, and what exactly are they hoping to achieve this time around? According to Brand South Africa, communicating the overall message of Team South Africa at the WEF, Team South Africa arrives with an evidence-based case pointing to recent credit rating upgrades, the removal of the country from the global grey list, the FATF grey list, energy stability over 300 days thereabouts as far as load shedding is concerned, and structural reforms that you've seen in some sectors of our economy, all aimed at shifting perceptions and restoring confidence. In fact, we are told that the message to the Davos audience is deliberate and clear. It is, South Africa is not a high-risk gamble, but a stable, rule-based economy with credible institutions, policy certainty, and a reform agenda that supports responsible long-term investment. Let's unpack all of that with Professor Adrian Seville, who is a professor of economics, finance and strategy at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. He is, of course, also the founding director of the Center for African Management and Markets. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. We'll get into this whole we'll get into this whole idea of an evidence-based approach by Team South Africa to this year's meeting in Davos. But I just want to recap. Why do we deem it important as a country to send a multi-sectoral, high-powered delegation each and every year? Do we have any evidence to back up that there's a return on that investment? Because it doesn't come cheap.
Yeah, Thulasizwe, the reason for going is to showcase and to position. So, you've used in the intro the term evidence-based, and it's tempting. I suppose it's human to ask, well, show me the evidence, show me the impacts, and it's very difficult to present a hard fact-based evidence that says this has happened because of Davos. But let's come back to that. What you have highlighted in the intro is the number of material gains, significant gains that have been had over the recent past, including the removal of grey list, energy stability, S&P upgrade, and perhaps I could throw into that hat the government of national unity holding through some very difficult circumstances. So, all told, it's been on balance a very good patch for South Africa, relatively speaking. And that's a fantastic story to go and tell to 3,000 leaders from 130 countries, and to show them exactly as you suggest, that this is a credible, investable country with strong, stable institutions, or perhaps we should say strengthening and increasingly stable institutions. So Davos is a place where you tell the story, and the story is to mobilize investment, showcase the reforms, and then find places to network and build platforms.
So as far as its composition and who attends beyond Team South Africa, the other delegations, would you say the main focus, is it with the main event, the WEF meeting, or the side events? I know that, for example, South Africa will be showcasing itself at the South Africa Investment Forum, where we are told a pipeline of ready-to-build, bankable infrastructure and energy projects will be showcased.
Well, that's first, maybe I can be cheeky, and you say there's a big event. And if we go to family gatherings, where does the real action happen? Does it happen, on the main stage, or does it happen in the side conversations? Yeah. You're laughing, the answer.
Yes, absolutely.
So these sidebar conversations are really where that's where the rubber hits the road, and where business gets done. Again, it's very hard to say that because of Davos this materialized. But if we step back, I've shared on social media over the last day or so a rather sobering assessment of the performance of the South African economy, where the world average investment rate has run at around 25% of GDP over the last 15 years. South Africa's investment rate has run at 15% of GDP. So the two 15s are easy to remember. 15 years, 15% of GDP, the world average 25% of GDP, which means South Africa is punching way below the required investment rates to achieve sustained, elevated, inclusive economic growth. And if anything comes from South Africa positioning itself at Davos, it has to be the improvement and elevation of that investment rate. Whether it's into energy infrastructure or other investment channels, I would argue that that's almost immaterial. It's that the money needs to flow.
So lastly then, Prof, let's talk about the trade relations, the opportunity and possibility of diversifying trade markets, etc. Is this way that kind of a conversation has the opportunity to at least gain some momentum? Because obviously the backdrop is the whole shake-up, if not upending, of the global system of trade as we've known it for the last while.
Yeah, the irony shouldn't be lost on us that this is being positioned as a forum for dialogue, where we've got the tensions that are very resident between the US and, in particular, 8 European nations, and the imposition of tariffs. So that might capture the headlines or the highlights. But again, I'll use the term platform. This is a place to platform and position. It's a place for dialogue. And in South Africa's case, I think it's an important point to stop, retell the story of the country, and drive the news of the gains that have been had. Whilst I might argue that modest as they are gains, which is refreshing and important for South Africa. And yes, diversification would come through that, finding new partners in different trade channels.
All right, let's leave it there. Let's see how it all unfolds. Thank you for your time and your insights. And that's Professor Adrian Serval, who is a Professor of Economics, Finance and Strategy at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. Let me go to Ann Musa, take the news headlines, and then we'll come back with the traffic and sport in a moment.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chilwane says preliminary investigations into the cause of the scholar transport crash in Vanderbijl Park indicates the driver was attempting to overtake multiple vehicles when a head-on collision with a truck occurred. The crash claimed the lives of 14 learners. The ANC has accused private investigator Paul O'Sullivan of contempt of parliament after he wrote to the ad hoc committee investigating allegations of criminal infiltration and corruption, asking to testify virtually. O'Sullivan raised concerns about his security. And US President Donald Trump has said he will 100% follow through on his threats to impose additional tariffs on European countries, opposed to his ambitions to take control of Greenland. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's another busy one coming in from the south side of Joburg. Got a crash on the N12, so if you're driving in from Protea Glen, that collision scene before the Klipspruit Valley Road exit, so quite heavy from the Lenasia exit as you head through towards Joburg and Eldorado Park. And then jam-packed again up the N1 through Devlin, through Dipcliffe on your way to Uncle Charlie's, very slow. Second day in a row of some pretty crazy backlogs through there. Coming into Galuli's interchange, a crash just before you get into the interchange. N12 and R24 routes are backed up, and the Mike 1 solid already from Gold Reef City all the way through to around Empire Road, up through Crown and Double Decker looking really busy. Pietermaritzburg to Durban is fine, no major problems. Just keep in mind today, tomorrow and Thursday, so 3 consecutive days starting from today, the N3 will be closed between New England Road and Ashburton 3 o'clock until 3:30, so a 30-minute full closure for blasting works on that sort of around the Market Road exit area. That's where the blast will be, so 30-minute stoppages today, tomorrow and Thursday. 3 o'clock this afternoon is when that all gets underway. And then in Cape Town, the crash on the M2 inbound before Jake's Kervell Drive has been cleared, but it's left a backlog of traffic this morning from around about Spine Road, Khayelitsha, through to Rappenberg Road, and Baden-Powell at Khayelitsha's Monwabisi. Sandy Corner is closed this morning due to the thick sand on the roadway, so a little local deviation and detour through the bottom of Khayelitsha to get around that one. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you. So it's a new year, same season that was on pause for just a moment as we cast our eyes on Morocco 2025. That has now come and gone. Tell me about Mamelodi Sundowns and how they are starting the year as far as the Betway Premiership is concerned.
Oh, Thulas, you know Sundowns doing Sundowns things. They just have to rotate. Bafana style. Yeah, you know, they just have to rotate the squad, stay on top of the log, and they still look like they're cruising in that second gear. They had a 2-0 victory over Orbit College at Loftus Versfeld. Arthur Salles opened the scoring with an improvised overhead kick in the first half. Before the new signing, Brian Leon marked his debut with a header just after the hour. The win lifting Sundowns 1 point above Orlando Pirates, who still have 2 games in hand. Let's go to more soccer. This time we go to the Kaizer Chiefs camp. They may be quiet in the transfer market, but according to co-coach Cedric Case, there's method behind the silence. Amakosi believe the answers could already be in the dressing room rather than in last-minute signings.
There are some conversations going around with our players going out, but about players going in, I would say that it's just try to see if there is a very good deal on a very specific player that is available. But other than that, there is nothing further.
Let's go to AFCON, where Senegal veteran midfielder Idrissa Gana Gueye believes the Lions of Teranga were deserved winners of the title. Senegal edging the host Morocco 1-0 after extra time in a fiercely contested final, a match marked by high emotion and controversy both on and off the pitch. Now, this was him saying he was overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment.
I cannot explain it because it's the moment. At this moment, we just feel really proud and very happy for what we did on the pitch, and we fight till the end for our country, for our badges, and today we are really happy to win these trophies again. We deserve it, and our country deserve it, and the young lads deserve it.
Cricket action, the Joburg Super Kings booked their place in the SA20 playoffs with a commanding 44-run win over the Paarl Royals at Boland Park. Imran Tahir, Pranil Subramanian and Akil Hussain shared 6 wickets to bowl the Royals out for 122 after the Joburg Super Kings posted 166 for 5. Lewis Deploy starred with an unbeaten 54 on his first appearance of the season. Now the two sides will meet again on Thursday, and it's the eliminator all happening in Centurion. That's your sports swingback. More top of the hour for the morning brief. I'm Zai Khan.
The business update on SAFM.
All right, for that we turn to Ndauleng Lichela. Ndauleng, I don't seem to have your talking points. Good morning. What are you leading with in this first update?
Morning, Tula. So we're starting off with the EU's response to Trump's tariffs. The European Union is preparing a range of responses as trade tensions with the US intensifies following President Trump's threat to impose new tariffs on European goods. Brussels is considering duties on up to $108 billion worth of US products if Washington moves ahead with a 10% levy next month, while stressing that diplomacy remains the preferred route. Now, EU officials have begun internal consultations with leaders set to meet in Brussels to assess retaliation options and broader countermeasures. The bloc has signaled unity, particularly in backing Denmark and Greenland, and warned against economic coercion. France has even floated the use of the EU's anti-coercion instrument, a powerful but untested trade defense tool. Now, the dispute risks derailing an existing EU-US trade agreement and unsettling markets. Economists, in the meantime, warn that higher tariffs could curb exports for the most exposed European economies. Do you have the points now?
Why are you doing that? Why are you shaming me in front of the people so early in the morning? Can we just get along? Can we not shame each other? Tell me about China's central bank and the decision taken as far as interest rates are concerned.
So the central bank, the People's Bank of China, that is standing pat on rates. And this comes despite slower economic growth, with policymakers signaling a preference for targeted stimulus rather than monetary loosening. The central bank left the 1-year and 5-year loan prime rates unchanged at 3% and 3.5% for the 8th consecutive month, keeping borrowing costs stable for businesses and homeowners. Now, the decision comes as economic momentum weakened late last year, with growth slowing to its softest pace since the post-pandemic reopening. While deflation pressures have begun to ease slightly, domestic demand remains fragile, weighed down by a prolonged property downturn, weak job prospects, and cautious consumers. Retail sales growth slipped to multi-year lows in December, highlighting the strain on household confidence. The bank further said they are using targeted re-lending tools to channel credit towards private companies, innovation, and small businesses this year, rather than broad interest rate cuts.
Lastly, Dowling, recap for us how we closed and how we are starting the morning as far as markets are concerned.
Mm-hmm. So trade was expected to be thin overnight as markets were closed on account of Martin Luther King Day, but President Trump could not keep himself out of the headlines, and his tariff threats on NATO allies has sent chills down investors' spines. The JSE also hit by that, with stocks mostly in the red yesterday. The all-share flat, losing 0.09%. The rand, however, making some gains this morning at 16.38 to the dollar, supported by higher precious metal prices on the back of the risk-off mood. Looking at other currency pairs, the pound to the rand sits above 22 and the euro to the local unit slightly weaker at 19.10. In commodities, oil remains stable, just below $63 a barrel. And then lastly, in Asia, traders fretting as tariff threats return to the table, fueling volatility. And so stocks in that region are in negative territory.
All right, Dowling, thank you for that. We'll touch base with you once again just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Standing by with that is Advocate Sipho Mantula. Raz, good morning. Let's start in Mozambique. Tell me about the floods and just the kind of havoc that they've wreaked in parts of the country, particularly Gaza province.
Refreshing morning, Tulas and Jumbo Africa, dear listeners. Tulas, we know that every January we have the challenge of heavy flooding or heavy rainfall towards the north, whether Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Limpopo. And now what we are picking up from Mozambique, the Ministry of Transport have said that 40% of Gaza province it is already under flooding, Tulas, and that affects many roads. They have said that almost 152 kilometers of the roads were completely destroyed, and almost 3,000 kilometers of classified roads nationwide were seriously affected. Not only Gaza, Tulas, the capital city also the Sofala provinces. That's where you can find some of these challenges. President Chapo, when he was moving around Tulas with his helicopter, he had to assist some of the communities in Chokwe, where there was a baby and 12 people who were stranded. So there are many challenges Tulas that are facing Mozambique, and that affects also the neighboring South Africa. Hence, we have the national state of emergency that has been declared in South Africa. But Mozambique, we are also helping them, Tulas. I don't think they are only dealing with it as a country. There's what we call SADC regional support.
Yeah. In fact, I've covered similar floods in Mozambique a couple of years ago, Sipho, with having traveled with the SANDF, and just the sheer scale of flooding that happens, especially around this time of the year in parts of Mozambique, is astounding, where you will travel for endless kilometers and all you see is just brown, muddy waters. And you ask yourself about the plight of the communities over which you would be flying in that chopper. From Mozambique, take me to the Eastern DRC. In fact, take me to Togo in a story that has to do with the peace process in the Eastern DRC.
Tulas, you'll recall that we have a mediators for the DRC coming from the AU. So that meeting in Lome in Togo was over the weekend, where you have former presidents from Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, Ethiopian former President Sahle-Work, Central African Republic, Catherine Samba Panza, Botswana, President Mokgweetsi Matsi. So you have more than 5 mediators who are dealing with this matter, and the AU chairperson emphasized the issue of agency on Africa-led solution to this long-running crisis, and the issue of restoring peace in that aspect. Even if we have the Doha process, the Washington process, the Lome process is very important. The host president, remember, he's been appointed as the chief mediator for the Great Lakes by the AU, Faure Kansibe, the president of Togo. So hence this meeting was just to look at the modalities, how do they support the current peace process in the DRC.
And then tell me about this initiative in Kenya. They're called the Border Girls. What's that about?
I don't know whether if you have been to East Africa, to like us in South Sudan, border is like a motorbike, you know.
Absolutely.
So the border motorbike, the motorcycle riders, they are women in Kenya, in Kisumu, who are using this cycle to assist women who are in maternal health care, meaning women who are giving birth in rural villages to us, because UNICEF has come up with a report to say 5,000 to almost 30,000 newborns die each year in Kenya due to the complications during pregnancy and their childbirth. So this initiative since 2022, it operates by the women of Kenya who are moving from village to village to like assisting women who have to give birth. Remember this issue of the distance of the clinics, hospitals. Now this border, they are assisting the women of Kenya. It's a great initiative to us. They don't have to wait for the Uber or for the bus. They are taking border.
And in your historical archives report, tell me about 20 January 1987.
Tulas, you will recall this judge, Cecil Mago. He was appointed, they say he was an aviation expert. He was aware of some of the issues. He was appointed to investigate the death of Samora Machel in 1987. Just you'll recall, Samora Machel was killed in 1986 October. Now on this day, 39 years ago, there was a first hearing at the then Rent Supreme Court to look at the mysterious death or assassination of Mozambican President Samora Machel. His findings to us were not positive. It was all about that there was no sabotage from external forces, contradicting the Russian and the Mozambican medical investigation on what happened to the killing of Samora Machel, who you'll recall he was coming from a meeting in Lusaka when the plane crashed, and that raises the issues around South Africa's involvement. That was near our border of Komatipoort, Mbuzini. That's where you still have a heritage site there to as a sign of memory of what happened in 1986. Asante sana
very quickly, just on that story, it really is one big question mark that I don't know why we don't want to go back and check on it. Years ago, I did a story where I spoke to the NTSB investigator from the United States who had come to help South African investigators. And he said years later, in fact, as he was leaving South Africa, having done that work, it came to light that the South African security forces had that equipment that had the potential to produce a certain beacon. Because remember, there's a story around the plane was led to to that crash site by a false beacon, and that equipment could not be accounted for that evening. His name is Alan Deal. He was from the NTSB, and he said After hearing about that which was not disclosed during the course of the investigation, he now has his own doubts. So if the NTSB that was influential in the investigation, that the lead investigator has his own questions, I wonder why we've never really gone back to investigate that.
Absolutely, Thulas. And the role of, like you said, of the security forces, the then apartheid military intelligence lied to us in that commission, because the issue was that the black box of the plane also that you look into. And that's why I said to you, when they say there was no evidence of sabotage, it was contradicting. And like I said, Cecil Mago, that judge, was taken as an expert on issues of aviation. To us, even in the late 80s, in 1987, he was chairing the Commission on Civil Aviation in this country. So even from the judge, there was a misreading of the facts, because we knew the power of Samora Machel during those years to last, and likelihood that there was a hand. And Justice Sachs is still alive. He can share more to us about what really happened to Samora Machel.
All right,
that was leading the conversation, SFM, observing the education.
Thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update.
Sorry I'm late, Sevi. Had to fetch my lucky putter. No worries, let's go. We're teeing off in an hour. Great. We're taking your car. Can't. It's already taken. What do you mean taken? It was right here when I left a few minutes ago. I sold it to WeBuy Cars and made a whole lot of green. Birdie told me that's the best way to sell your car. Not only the best way, it's the fair way. Kom ons vat die pad.
Don't be doof, be savvy. WeBuy Cars, geared for a fast sale, geared for you.
In a world of noise, one thing is still clear. Akwele. Introducing the new, still-flavored range from Akwele. Lemon mint, mango passion fruit, blueberry raspberry, peach apricot. Still made from Akwele's 100% natural spring water. Delicious, high in vitamins, low in kilojoules, and still full of joy. It's new, it's refreshing, it's flavored, it's still Akwele.
Mzansi, Powerball has skyrocketed to an epic 177 million rand estimated jackpot this Tuesday, the second highest ever recorded jackpot in Ituba's history. Play now and you could win big. Just like Friday's Powerball Plus winner who bagged over 33 million rand via the National Lottery platform. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda, Pusha, Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
You know, if you come from the south, from Lenasia, Protea, Glen, Crossmere, it's getting a bit difficult, isn't it? Daily basis, you sit in very heavy traffic. There must have been so much development over recent years in that part of Joburg, because you never used to sit like this, but very often you come into Joburg on that N1 and you're backed heavily from the N12 Potch Highway up through Dipcliff down to Uncle Charlie's, and it is exactly that this morning. You went through it yesterday and going through it again this morning. And the side road, the Golden Highway, has issues with traffic lights down both Devlin and Nature Arena side. So if you're avoiding the N1 snarler, you're sitting some localised traffic as well. Also, before you even get there, a crash between Protea Glen and the Klipsveld Valley Road in the N12. So passing Lenasia on your way to Joburg into that scene, it's quite heavy as well. The N1 going north slow this morning from Bayers Nordia up towards the Winnie Mandela Drive off-ramp. A lot of traffic lights out, Pretoria East, Solomon, Mshlangu and Gaasfontein in that sort of neighbourhood. Got a couple of big lights down and some localised congestion there as well. M13 just outside Durban, travelling from Hillcrest down towards Maytime. That's busy this morning. And Cape Town, the earlier crash on the N2 into town at Jakes Gerville Drive has been cleared. It backed the traffic up though, and it is slow to sort of recover. It is just going to be a busy morning. Traffic basically from Baden-Powell Drive at Khayelitsha all the way through to about Mowbray Main Road. Also the N1 inbound Belleville through to Cooper, going to change, is busy. And Baden-Powell down at Monwabisi closed due to thick sand on the roadway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Fly SAFA has been named the most on-time airline in Africa and the Middle East by Cirium, world leader in aviation analytics. That's 3 years in a row we've been recognized for reliably getting you to the places and faces you love. But reliability doesn't come from shortcuts. It comes from care, consistency, and a commitment to service excellence. Because getting you there on time isn't just what we promise, it's what we do. Fly Sapphire for the love of flying.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
8 minutes to 7. In fact, it's coming up to 7 minutes to 7. This story is really difficult to truly capture in words, just the trauma and the tragedy of it all. Police have confirmed that the Scholar transport vehicle involved in the deadly Vanderbijl Park crash was overloaded, carrying 18 occupants despite being certified for only 14. The confirmation comes as the death toll has risen to 14 school pupils that have died following the recovery of a child's body that had been trapped beneath the minibus taxi, and the death of another pupil in hospital a bit later. Investigations are continuing into the cause of the crash and potential criminal liability. You will know that it's one of many incidents that have happened involving Scholar transport, and I can run you through them very quickly before we speak to our guest, because we did a bit of that work just digging. 28 July 2025, an incident in West Park in Johannesburg, 20 plus minus 20 children injured, treated and discharged in hospital. This was where a vehicle had overturned. 15 August 2025, Scholar bus in Carltonville. That incident also led to one grade R learner dying in hospital a bit later on. Then there was another incident around August also in Imbali Township in KwaZulu-Natal, where 5 pupils died, including a grade 9 learner who succumbed to injuries some days later. This was after suspected brake failure caused the vehicle to veer off the road. Then, also in August last year, a taxi plunges in Gwaketa Bridge in KwaZulu-Natal. At least 20 pupils are injured, and so on and on. In fact, I counted about 6 of these incidents that would make this latest one in Vanderbijl Park the 7th, and quite deadly it has been. So let's bring in our guest then and grapple in full with everything that has happened in the last while and just the sheer trauma of it all. And Dominic Nkosi is chairperson of the South African Scholar Transport Association in Gauteng. Good morning, and thank you for your time. Just in your own words, grapple with the tragedy that has occurred. Grapple with it from the perspective of the industry that is front and center of this conversation right now.
Good morning to us. Good morning to your listeners again. And yeah, it is quite sad of what has just happened with this incident of yesterday, where we lost a couple of young kids in the lives of Scholar transporter driver. So this thing has just shattered us all, and then caused a real shock to all of us, and we sympathize with the families and condolences to the families at large for their great loss.
Not that finger pointing or blame shifting and the likes will bring back the lives of these children or console the families in any way, but accountability is important. Olani, why do we keep seeing these incidents occurring in your industry, the Scholar transport operators?
So there are a lot of things that we just turn a blind eye on. We as Scholar transporters, and also with the government. Yes. Because yes, we do have incidents where we find Scholar transporters being negligent on the road, overtaking where they're not supposed to, and also overspeeding. Yes. And on that part, we take a full accountability of that, because some of these Scholar transporters that are transporting these kids, they are not well informed as to how they're supposed to handle a vehicle that is maybe loaded with kids. In fact, any other vehicle. So it is where also the government has to just intervene on some of these things in terms of educating or having workshops where these Scholar transporters need to know exactly what they're supposed to do on the road, because at some point there's this also a thing of not only scholar transporters get involved in these incidents. Also, we find taxi drivers that are supposed to carry public to work. They also do come in and transport these kids to school. And you see now, it's more of at the end we are the ones who are on the firing end, and we are the ones who are supposed to be accountable for all of the things that are happening.
How much of a factor is that, the involvement of the taxi industry in carrying out scholar transport functions, or is this seeking to shift blame to that industry as opposed to, people who have minibuses and other large capacity vehicles specifically for the purpose of ferrying children to school?
Not that we shift that much of a blame to the taxi industry, but yes, we know we operate on the roads. We know that these taxis they've got association stickers and all of those things. We recognize them by that. So now, at some point, on some of these accidents that are happening, including maybe this one, was it identified that this taxi had a sticker for Scholar Transport Association, or had any sticker on it that it is supposed to carry kids to school?
Just from your perspective, what have you done? You've mentioned government, what government should be doing, the initiatives it should be taking. What are the concrete measures you have taken to rein in your industry, to whip everyone into line, to let them understand that they're carrying lives that can be lost in an instant by the wrong decision making? Show me one or two examples, initiatives you've taken.
You see, on that one, because, okay, let me just start here. During lockdown, COVID, we've discovered a lot of things regarding scholar transportation that it was neglected for quite a long time, and all of those things. So there was an organization that was formed to maybe form as an umbrella that can maybe try to intervene in terms of the operation of scholar transporters. As I'm talking now, I'm one of those people on that executive. So we've tried a lot of things, like in trying to engage with the government so that they can sit down with the scholar transporters and.
That's not an initiative, Xolani. That's not an initiative. An initiative is something like we as an industry are going to take these drivers from this region. You are invited to a workshop. We've invited the AA to teach you about mass transportation, how to get your public driving permit, etc., etc. That's an initiative. Starting an organization during lockdown and asking government to intervene is not an initiative.
Right, okay, I hear you on that one. Sorry about that. Initiatives were held where we came together as scholar transporters and to inform each other and to teach each other as to how we're supposed to handle these kids.
Where and when was that done?
If I'm not mistaken, it was during more on those lockdown times, because
that's a long time ago, Xolani. That's a long time ago.
But also we do have the group chats on WhatsApp where we try and teach each other regarding that part as to how we're supposed to handle these kids and the cars.
All right, Xolani, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your engagement this morning. That's Xolani Dominic Nkosi, chairperson of the South African Scholar Transport Association in Gauteng, in Ekurhuleni. Let's go to Ann Musa on standby with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, preliminary investigations into Vanderbijl Park scholar transport crash and ANC demand O'Sullivan face at a committee in person. Good morning. Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chilwane says preliminary investigations into the cause of the scholar transport crash in Vanderbijlpark indicates the driver was attempting to overtake multiple vehicles when a head-on collision with a truck occurred. The crash claimed the lives of 14 learners. 4 other learners were critically injured. Chilwane says they fear the death toll might increase.
The private scholar transport driver was trying to overtake multiple vehicles at a time. And if you look at the time, he was most probably late to drop off his learners because they were going to 5 different schools. So I'm sure he was trying to catch up time. And then as he was trying to overtake this number of vehicles, the truck came on the opposite direction because it's a two-way lane. Then it was a head-on collision.
Meanwhile, the mother of 13-year-old learner Lisedin Toba, who died in the crash, says she's heartbroken. Confessing Toba was speaking outside the Sebokeng mortuary where she went to identify her daughter's body. And Toba says she also went to confront the taxi driver.
And I would take a driver.
I just met the gentleman who was the driver of the fatal crash. He is alive and just came out of the scanner. He has a big body. He's 23 years old.
23 years.
The ANC has accused private investigator Paul O'Sullivan of contempt of Parliament after he wrote to the ad hoc committee investigating allegations of criminal infiltration and corruption, asking to testify virtually. O'Sullivan raised concerns about his security. The committee also says he has dictated which political parties serving before the committee he will recognise. In a letter, O'Sullivan says he does not want to engage with the MK Party, EFF and Action SA. His request to testify virtually has been rejected and the committee has resolved to subpoena him. ANC Chief Whip Ndumiseni Ntuli.
We are dealing with an individual who's treating Parliament with serious contempt. And we don't believe that as the African National Congress, we should allow a private citizen to undermine the Parliament of the Republic to that extent. And we are very convinced that the position we adopted earlier on as a committee shall be sustained, which is that the man has to be called physically before the ad hoc committee to explain his role in the security environment of the South African Police Service. And we will not accept any excuse, as he has said it in those emails, about his security and that we want to organize him to be murdered and all that nonsense he's talking about.
The state in the Senzumehiwa murder trial is expected to continue cross-examining defense witness Sifiso Gwabini Zungu regarding contradictions in his testimony this morning. Gwabini has been under cross-examination in the Pretoria High Court, where 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder of the Bafana Bafana captain. He has alleged that he was assaulted at various locations following his arrest in June 2020. However, he says he was released without appearing in court after allegedly paying money to the investigating officers. State Advocate George Baloy grilled him on contradictions relating to the amount paid.
And to testify that Sergeant Mukhani told you that the 200 rand was for bail.
200?
2,000, sorry.
2,000? 2,000?
Yes.
2,000?
Telling lies.
3,000 rand, Manyam, not 2,000, 200.
It's 3,000 and you say it's 2,000. It was 3,000.
Manyam, 3,000 rand.
My money was 3,000 rands. Mr. Zungu, we're trying to establish as to why is there a difference between the amount that you testified about in your evidence in chief, namely 2,000 rand, and the amount that you now mentioned, namely 3,000.
Further afield, and finally, US President Donald Trump has said he will 100% follow through on his threats to impose additional tariffs on European countries opposed to his ambitions to take control of Greenland. Trump insists Greenland is key to US security and European allies have been trying to reassure him they appreciate those concerns. The BBC's Sarah Smith has the details.
The big question is, how serious is he about causing a rupture in relations with Europe, damaging, maybe even destroying NATO in order to get his hands on Greenland? Well, often, in order to work out what Donald Trump is going to do, you simply have to listen to what he says. It's just occasionally the way he says it, throwing in, for instance, complaints about not getting the Nobel Peace Prize, make it sound like he's less than serious, when in fact he means exactly what he says.
Recapping the top story, Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chilwane says preliminary investigations into the cause of the scholar transport crash in Vanderbijl Park indicates the driver was attempting to overtake multiple vehicles when a head-on collision with a truck occurred. The crash claimed the lives of 14 learners. For SAFM News, I'm Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Wondering why 45-year-old Nivan has such a big smile lately?
Outsurance. Save me so much money. 461 Rand.
That's right. With Outsurance, Nivan saves an amazing 461 Rand a month on his 2025 VWT Cross. And after 3 claim-free years, he gets an out bonus.
So much money.
How much money could Outsurance save you? Get a quote now. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer action. Mamelodi Sundowns are back on top of the PSL. And at the Cricket World Cup, the under-19 South African team are up and running after a convincing win over Tanzania. We'll have the details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. We start south of Joburg with some delays coming in from Lenasia and Protea Glen. A crash on the N12 highway before Klipsveld Valley. Quite a heavy backlog passing Lenasia, although it is starting to ease, I must say. The N1 then from the N12 Potch Highway up through Deepcliff down towards Uncle Charlie's. Very heavy backlogging going on. And then again this morning, day 2, a big delays. The N1 North is under pressure, 14th Avenue through to Winnie Mandela. Lights are out, Witkoppen and the main road, so that's causing all sorts of delays coming in from Lone Hill or exiting 4 ways across to Sunny Hill, and lights out around Pretoria East this morning along Garsfontein and Solomon Mshlangu option, so that's very slow. Durban from Hillcrest, the M13 towards Maytime is sluggish, the M13 then queues down towards the N3 Paradise Valley exit, and Higginson Highway out of Chatsworth quite heavy as well. Cape Town queuing up on the N2 inbound passing Khayelitsha, and then from the airport the N2 stays busy all the way through to Mowbray Main Road. The N1 into town solid this morning from Belleville through to Kubo. Get a change, and no traffic lights. N7 Franz Conradi, delays all around that junction in Goodwood. Update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 7 on this Tuesday. It's great to be in your company. Welcome to the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107. Let me quickly reflect on the issue of scholar transport as reflected in the tragedy that occurred in Vanderbijl Park yesterday. The truly horrific scenes that play themselves out, the sheer horror and the trauma that was translated and transported, to all of us and communicated so vividly and in such a raw manner by the scenes of those parents in that anguish over their children that had passed on when that incident occurred, that crash occurred as they were being transported to school. Papillon in Eldos says, Thulas, I cry for those children and for those children's deaths in road carnage. Others have passed on through murder, rape, and violence. Look at our currency, unemployment, housing issue. I hereby ask, who did the majority vote for? What a calamity the ANC is, says Papillon, in reflection on that. And then Brian Mabaye from Protea Glen says, when it comes to scholar transport, I have managed to change 2 transports for my child when I noticed that the drivers don't respect the laws of the road All I used to hear was very loud music in the morning and reckless driving, says Brian Mabaye in Protea Glen. And then someone else weighing in on that and bringing in the taxi industry says the taxi industry in South Africa and in Africa is so primitive. See the example of modern transport, so controlled internationally. And then lastly, TG, reflecting on the interview we had with Xolani Dominic Nkosi of the South African Scholar Transport Association in Gauteng, says this guy of Scholar Transport is not make sure, and maybe you must get someone, some people. What a waste of time, says TG. So there you have it then, just the initial reactions of some people as they were listening to that conversation, as well as reflecting on the tragic events that happened yesterday in Vanderbijl Park. In this half hour in particular, we'll focus on the flooding in Limpopo and Mpumalanga. We'll start off with a scientific explanation of what we are seeing with Professor Jasper Knight from Wits University, Wits Geography and Environmental Sciences Department. And then immediately after that, we will reflect on the infrastructure implications, the built environment implications of the flooding that we are seeing, the resilience or lack thereof of the infrastructure that is being built. We'll do that with Chris Campbell from the Consulting Engineers South Africa. Your calls, do put them through to 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032, or your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. With that said, let's get into it. The second hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief.
The citizens want to collect 3 points to emphasize that 2026 is their year.
Matthias Nunes delivers. Haaland's header! Wonderful cross. Superb header. 41st minute, Haaland's first chance.
The visitors, Wolves, plan to reveal a big strategy to shock Sir Guardiola's side.
Mane comes back in field, tries to strike from distance. Tolo! 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 Oh my word! That is sensational!
This is the Premier League. Catch Manchester City versus Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday, 24 January at 4:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC 3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
14 minutes after 7. Parts of this country, as well as parts of the broader Southern African region, including countries like Mozambique, are experiencing severe flooding and extreme weather conditions that have already claimed dozens of lives, displaced communities, and caused extensive damage to infrastructure, agriculture, and ecosystems. So what explains these conditions, their intensity and geographic spread? What do they tell us about climate change and what South Africans may need to prepare for in the future as weather patterns and seasons continue to shift? Let's have that conversation with Professor Jasper Knight from Wits Geography and Environmental Sciences. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time there, Prof. When I saw what was happening in Limpopo and Mpumalanga, it seemed quite familiar to me with patterns that we see in Mozambique, especially around this time of year. Then I started hearing about areas including parts of Zimbabwe that were also affected, Malawi and the likes. What explains the intensity of the storms, the flooding and the carnage that we have seen in the last few weeks?
Good morning, and yes, you're absolutely right. This is a typical seasonal pattern of rainfall that we experience pretty much every single year in southern Africa. So during the onset of the summer season, we have lots of incoming low-pressure cells that are developed over the Indian Ocean, and they move basically from east to west over Madagascar, Mozambique, and into the northeastern part of South Africa. And this is something that we've seen time and time again over the last few years. So we can think of Cyclone Idai, for example, a couple of years ago, causing very similar flooding impacts. So what we see really today is a typical behaviour of the weather patterns that we have here in southern Africa.
But what explains the reach of those systems so far inland, right? Because, we associate them with weather patterns and storm patterns that form over the Indian Ocean, but so far inland in parts of Mpumalanga and Limpopo. How do we explain that?
Well, we often see these weather systems developed over the Indian Ocean reaching this far inland, so this is not unusual at all. And these events are known over the last few years to also give rise to intense flooding, as you've mentioned, in the southern part of Zimbabwe, Malawi, and so on. So its kind of geographical spread is not actually surprising, and it's not actually unusual. But, of course, when we do have these seasonal rains, this can give rise not only to heavy rainfall and intense flooding, but it's the impacts of the flooding that can vary in scale. So sometimes, of course, there may be a little bit of flooding, sometimes there's a lot. And what we've seen this year over recent weeks is that we've had quite a lot of rain. And this is mainly because of the way in which the rain has been generated. So many of the very intense rainstorms that we've had recently have actually come not from these incoming cyclones from the Indian Ocean, but from a different weather pattern called a cut-off low, which is basically where a low-pressure cell associated with lots of moisture and lots of rain is detached from a fast-moving jet stream. So the rainstorms that we've had have a slightly different origin, and this can help explain how intense they have been.
So to the untrained eye, I suppose we can explain it as the whole weather system is unsettled, because while all of that has been happening, that weather pattern that you and I are discussing, parts of Mpumalanga, for example, had a hurricane. I don't know, do we call them hurricanes in South Africa, or a tornado? They were hit by a tornado. Parts of the northwest experienced intense lightning that actually got people in harm's way. How do you explain what we call unsettled weather, as the common person would say the whole weather pattern is unsettled, the droughts in the Western Cape, all of that? Should we be expecting that to happen more and more, this unsettled weather and climate patterns?
Yes, pretty much that's correct. So all of these events that you've described, tornadoes, lightning and intense thunderstorms, these really reflect the instability of the atmosphere. So if we have a warm land surface, this makes the overlying air rise up through the atmosphere, and this creates cloud systems such as thunderstorms. So what we see typically is characteristic of the ways in which the atmosphere becomes unstable. Another thing, of course, that we are also experiencing at the moment is that we are in the middle of a La Nina event. So these reflect global scale patterns of weather systems that in southern Africa are typically associated with wetter conditions on the eastern side of the country. And this may also be a contributing factor to the intense rainstorms that we've seen on this eastern side of the country.
All right, Prof, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your insights as always. Professor Jasper Knight from Wits University, just unpacking the science of some of the weather patterns that you and I are living through at the moment. In the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Chris Campbell from the Consulting Engineers South Africa. We'll be looking at the infrastructure implications of the storms and the flooding that we've been talking about lately.
The best summer experience is at the cricket ground. The Proteas and the Windies are gearing up for the T20 World Cup. This is the first T20 international contest. Be part of it. South Africa versus West Indies on Tuesday, 27 January at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC2. With reports on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Mzansi Powerball has skyrocketed to an epic 177 million rand estimated jackpot this Tuesday, the second highest ever recorded jackpot in Ituba's history. Play now and you could win big, just like Friday's Powerball Plus winner who bagged over 33 million rand via the National Lottery platform. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or dial star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda, Pusha, Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
22 minutes after 7, as the country grapples with severe flooding and extreme weather conditions that have claimed lives and caused widespread damage, the Consulting Engineers South Africa says it stands in solidarity with affected families and communities. These events highlight the growing impact of climate change on our built environment and highlight the urgent need for resilient, well-planned and well-maintained infrastructure that can protect lives, livelihoods and the economy. Let's hear more about that angle of the story with Chris Campbell from Consulting Engineers South Africa, where he's CEO. Good morning to you, Chris, and thank you for your time. Observing the storms, obviously the main concern is about the loss of life and livelihoods, but the story of the infrastructure is never far off. From roads, hundreds of kilometers of roads that have been impacted, either swept away or damaged to a great extent, bridges swept away, as well as social infrastructure, schools, wastewater treatment plants and the likes. When you look at these patterns, what does it say to you from an engineering perspective and from a infrastructure build perspective?
Good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to your listeners. So what it says to us, and firstly I'd like to say that we really lament the loss of life and wish the families who've suffered those losses the greatest of strength. But what it implies and says to us is that, and bear in mind, we are now in January. We are experiencing what is known as La Nina, the rather wet period. And in Gauteng, these continuous heavy downpours had started then already in the Gauteng area. Fortunately, and thankfully, we had some proactive measures being taken by the Department of Water and Sanitation. So the downstream impact, though there was not much reported loss of life, but to infrastructure and tourism downstream of the Vaal River, that happened. If we look at the northern parts of our country, Limpopo and Mpumalanga, which are severely affected at this point in time, largely rural communities. And I think the unfortunate reality there is a insufficient preparedness in respect of responses and possible even predictability, because if you're having that in day one and you're having it day two, surely there should be some intelligence and people sitting around a table, whether it's in the local government entity, whoever, and weather services, and using the insights of engineers who are in manage water resources, etc., then you do then need to consider the risks instead of it happening and then the reaction only comes. Yeah. So it's the intelligence to inform a proactive approach that I believe may be missing.
But the scale of the damage we've seen to infrastructure, is it commentary on the intensity of the flooding and the rains that have come down, or is it commentary on the quality of the infrastructure that we are seeing, those bridges that have been completely overwhelmed, in some instances swept away? What can we say about our culture, our engineering culture thus far, the extent to which it has taken into account the intensity of the storms that we live with now?
Yeah, look, I think that it would be unfair to cast aspersions against the quality and integrity of the structures without knowing the age and what level of storms, because many of these structures are developed with a specific storm, rainfall return, 1 in 100 year storm kind of thing. What we're experiencing is probably way beyond the 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 or even, 1 in 500 return intervals type of rainfall patterns with that intensity. And then we also don't know what was the quality of the construction, the site supervision to ensure that you won't have excessive erosion of the soil surrounding these bridges and structures, because when you lose that, you will lose the structure. So it would be difficult to comment on that definitively without any facts.
I get you and accept that. But what should we be talking about then by way of going forward? Any new structures, we lay the foundations for? What should they factor in around resilience, given that we now live with those storms occurring with the frequency that you describe?
Yeah, look, I think the word resilience resonates well with what's the approach that we need to. I do know that already a lot of the standards to which some of these structures now have to be designed for much higher rainfall intensities into the future. And we need to be even more conservative because, climate change, we may have a lot of denialists. There's some president up in a northern country, Mr. Bully, who doesn't subscribe to that. But certainly I think climate change is a reality. And so in our approach, instead of looking at least cost, we need to look at life cycle and consider, obviously it's not possible to consider astronomically high, risk and then build the structures, because they may then cost way too much. But we've got to look at a decent information base that informs how much more integrity we need to put into our designs. And then, and importantly, is we must make sure that the best companies with the best minds are brought forward to do this. This is not just a case of giving work to a company. They must prove that they have got the depth of experience, because we do need that depth and that foresight to make sure that these structures will stand up and stand the test of time of the almost unknown changes in the climatic events that we are going to be experiencing going forward.
All right, Chris, thank you for your insights. Let's leave it there for this morning. Chris Campbell is the CEO of Consulting Engineers South Africa. We'll go to Zai in a moment, but let me go to N, Musa. N, good morning. Let's talk about the weather, different weather experiences, climatic conditions between where you are, between where you are and where I am. It's hot where I am. It's cold where you are.
It's freezing where I am. It's freezing, and it's affecting my voice. So yeah.
Listeners
must just bear with me today.
It's climate change. What do you have on the headlines?
Well, thank you, Thulas. In the headlines, more than 450 schools in flood-stricken areas in Limpopo will not open today. The Limpopo Education Department says the schools are not accessible due to overflowing rivers, damaged bridges and muddy roads. Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chilwane says preliminary investigations into the cause of the scholar transport crash in Vanderbijl Park indicates the driver was attempting to overtake multiple vehicles when a head-on collision with a truck occurred. The crash claimed the lives of 14 learners. And former Independent Police Investigative Directorate Head Robert McBride is expected to appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee probing allegations of criminal infiltration, political interference and corruption within the criminal justice system this morning. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Pretty important milestone today in the fact that the sort of last of the schools are going back and reopening. It's been a sort of staged return to school, but as far as we understand, it's pretty much all back from today, certainly in the big number terms, if you like. And you can see that. We saw it yesterday. In fact, more schools opening yesterday. And we saw it yesterday's drive time. The traffic levels were quite off the charts. And this morning, it's sort of got a real sort of normal feel about it. Traffic everywhere. Want an example of that? Well, here's a couple. The N1, Brockfontein to New Road. That is fairly standard now for the rest of the year. The N1 from 14th Avenue round to Winnie Mandela. There's quite a big backlog with traffic across all lanes of that section of the N1. Crash coming out of Lenasia and Protea Glen on the N12 before you get to Klipstraat Valley Road, still causing delays. And then that N1 from Potch Highway all the way through Devlin, through Diepkloof. Absolutely jam-packed again this morning. Just about as bad as it was yesterday. Durban's Kwamashu Highway still with traffic lights out, so coming through Duffs Road down towards the N2 remains a problem. A truck crash on the M7 eastbound around North Dean, just causing some delays. A crash at Prospecton on the N2, Tweeny Hill territory, coming from Amansam Toti. That is a heavy backlog. And Cape Town today, just really busy on the highways as well. N1 Belleville through to, Kuburg interchange. M5 Rondebosch up to Kuburg interchange, looking fairly heavy. And still a backlog of traffic passing Khayelitsha on the N2, sitting from Spine Road through to about the R300. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you. So Sundowns are back at the summit and the view of the rest of the table looks quite pretty from where they sit.
Yes, pretty indeed. Masandawana doing Masandawana things, It's maybe the different season, but for them it feels like, the same script. And the view is fantastic at the top. They are winners after last night. Wonderful to see Sundowns back after Arthur Salles and Brian Leon combined to fire Masandawana to that 2-0 victory. The result underlines Sundowns' title credentials once again as they continue to set the pace in the league. Let's go to their coach now, Miguel Cardoso, responding to growing speculation linking him with an exit from Kulurkop. Now he stopped short of calling the speculation simply just tavern talk.
When I was a kid in Portugal, I used to go with my papa to the cafe that we had down the road. And in that time, there was no media, there was no phones, there was no social networks, there was nothing of this. So basically, everything that had to do with discussions or football was done in the cafe. People used to read the newspaper on Monday, on Tuesday, so to analyze the weekend, then started the middle of the week speaking about the next weekend, and that's how discussions were done in football. Also, there was another way to discuss football. Usually in Portugal, in the cities, the city halls, they usually make the house of people where old people gather because they already are not working, they are pensioners, so they gather to discuss, to play cards, to spend their time together. And that's also a place where people discuss football.
And there we go. We'll discuss this a little bit later. But in the meantime, we'll look at the Africa Cup of Nations that's shaken up the FIFA Men's World Rankings. Champion Senegal climbed 7 places to a best ever 12th, while the finalist Morocco rose to a historic high of 8th, closer to home. Bafana sit around 60th in the world, holding steady after AFCON. And finally, cricket. South Africa crushed Tanzania by 329 runs in the ICC Under-19 World Cup clash in Windhoek. Jason Rolls and Mohamed Bulbulia struck commanding centuries as the young Proteas piled up a record 397 for 5. Tanzania were bowled out for just 68. That's your sports. Swing back. We'll bring you more on the morning brief. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. What is happening in Dowling? I'm not used to this. Revised upwards again. What's happening? IMF lifting South Africa's growth outlook. This is unfamiliar territory for me. I'm used to being revised downwards. What are you talking about?
Yeah. That sentiment that we've been talking about that optimism we've been talking about, it seems to be coming out and showing in these numbers that we are currently seeing. So the IMF now expects 2026 growth to come in at 1.4% from 1.2%, while the revision offers a modest boost. The pace of expansion to us remains far too low and far too weak to meaningfully tackle unemployment, inequality, and poverty. Still, alongside a similar upgrade from the World Bank, and the change provides a welcome boost, right? Last week, the World Bank said it forecasts growth of 1.4% this year, edging up to 1.5% the following year, citing, of course, progress in energy and logistics reforms and rising public investments. Now, improvements at Eskom and tentative recovery at Transnet have been central to restoring confidence. While this is good news in a global context, South Africa continues to underperform, with global forecasts well below global and regional averages, underscoring how much ground remains to be covered.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose what it shows is that the ingredients we need for growth are just there. We just need to put them together and cook, man. Cook, man, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, the National Debt Counsellors Association has the industry under the spotlight.
That's right, Thulas. The association is calling on government to clean up and professionalize the debt counseling industry, warning that unregistered operators are putting consumers at risk. The NDCA has submitted proposals to the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, the National Credit Regulator, and other bodies to strengthen oversight and tighten the rules governing debt counselors. Now, the proposals include tougher qualification requirements, practical training before registration, and clearer rules for how debt counseling businesses should operate. The association is also pushing for a formal exit process for consumers who enter debt review but cannot complete it due to unforeseen circumstances. Without this, consumers can be left stuck and vulnerable to scams. Around 12 million South Africans currently struggle with debt.
All right, lastly, recap for us where things stand as far as the markets go.
Kicking things off in Asia, it's a risk-off mood and equities are in the red. Japan's Nikkei leading the losses there, down close to 1.3%. Stateside, futures in negative territory. Investors there have a late start to the week, eyeing those new tariff threats and Netflix earnings out later today. And then coming back home, trade downbeat, with the all-share closing flat overnight, slipping 0.09%. The rand making slight gains this morning against the dollar. It's at 16.37, flat to the pound at 22, and at 19.10 to the euro. Over in commodities, crude remains stable, trading just below $63 a barrel as those protests, of course, in Iran ease.
All right, Ndauling, thank you for that. We'll touch base with you once again in the last update of the morning, and that's coming up just after 8:30.
SABC2 is stepping into a new era, Papa, where every moment tells a story. A new era of conversations with Enklik Let's Connect at 4:30 p.m, bringing real talk and South African voices. A new era of Afrikaans news at 6:30 p.m, trusted information in the language you love. A new era of family entertainment, Omar Sari at 7 p.m, celebrating humor, tradition and togetherness. A new era of excitement in a new time slot, Deal or No Deal at 7:30 p.m, bringing primetime thrills home. A new era of drama, Pimville at 9 p.m, a brand new powerful telenovela from Soweto that grips the heart, and a new era of flavor with a new season of Color Your Plate with Koo, Sundays at 7 p.m. A new era begins on SABC2.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief, weekdays Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
19 minutes to 8. So one of the messages that came through yesterday actually had to do with this very topic we're about to discuss now. I didn't read it out, didn't get to read it out, but I actually saw it, asking about whether or not the South African Social Security Agency has, changed its policy and qualification criteria, especially for the COVID-19 Social Relief of Distress Grant, and the eligibility questions of foreign nationals, asylum seekers, and refugees. Well, SASSA was also aware of that information circulating on social media and has now moved to clarify what it calls misinformation circulating on social media regarding the qualification criteria for that SRD grant. The agency has categorically denied claims that policies have been amended to allow foreign nationals to access South African taxpayers' funds outside of existing regulations, warning that such misinformation may cause confusion and unnecessary tension. So let's speak to Paseka Letsatsi, SASSA National Spokesperson. Good morning to you, Paseka. Thank you for your time.
Good morning to Thulasizwe.
Yeah, apologies for that. What is your best understanding of where this information emanated from, that there's new regulations, a new policy position that amends the eligibility criteria such that it includes more foreign nationals, asylum seekers and refugees?
Thulasizwe, I think it's just disheartening that someone sits somewhere in their office or somewhere in their little corner and just peddle lies about the organization. What we have picked up is that of late, almost every second week, we have to write something about people writing wrong messages about the organization. But I think we have, together with our legal, taken a decision that we need to take action against certain individuals, because all what they're simply doing is to cause unnecessary anxiety and just spread rumors and lies about us as an organization having amended the regulations.
That's going to be difficult to do, I suggest to you, Paseka, because unless you are specific and you know from which corners that disinformation tends to come from, and therefore you'd be able to target those people. But otherwise, you will be, scouring the whole social media.
Yeah, no, you're quite right, Thulasizwe. It means every second week we must just take legal action against certain individuals. But we have taken a decision as well that it will be advisable or acceptable for us to make sure that we inform our people that if they find such actions or such information, they need to verify it with the organization if indeed it's true. But however, unfortunately, we have people which, in our view, they just want to cause unnecessary anxiety in the society. I can send you to Thulasizwe now. You may find that since the beginning of this year, we don't have less than 50 fake news which have been spread all over the social media.
Yeah. We'll turn to clarifying what the actual position is, but I'm interested in this conversation about certain people peddling misinformation about SASSA. Do you believe that you are specifically being targeted, and what do you believe is the motive behind, to use that common word, behind such narratives about SASSA?
We don't want to get into that space, Thulasizwe, when we don't have sufficient information as well. We don't want as well to find ourselves in the same boat with people who are peddling lies. But we think also it's not only SASSA. I mean, we have seen other government departments, same thing happening. But I think maybe we may, as SASSA, be the soft targets because we work closely with the most vulnerable sector of our society. But who knows? Maybe because it's that silly season as well, which we know that people would want to say as most negative things about certain government departments because they are trying to drive a particular narrative. But I am careful that I must not make statements which I don't have evidence about.
So what is the actual position then? Has there been a change in policy, a change in the criteria for eligibility for social grants broadly, but specifically for the Social Relief of Distress Grant?
We can assure the public that there has never been a change which is meant to accommodate foreigners. The authorities who are able to change such policy, and in this instance it can only be the Minister of Social Development. And so far as we speak for now, I think people must just treat that particular message that is circulating as fake. In actual fact, it will be best for them to delete it and not even to respond to it.
But policy change, regulation change, criteria change or not, the effect is the same, is it not? That foreign nationals of particular categories do qualify for these grants. So whether there's a new position or not, the effect is the same, is it not?
No, it is. And I think, Thulasizwe, because you know that you can get some people hot under the collar, because we use general words. There's a difference between a refugee, an asylum seeker, and illegal immigrant. Someone who is an illegal immigrant is someone who came into the country illegal. In actual fact, when such person is identified, the police must arrest them and take them back to the country of their origin. However, if you are a refugee, you qualify or you have the same rights like me and you. The only right which you don't have as a refugee is the right to vote.
So what is the effect of that then? What's the extent of South African permanent resident holders, refugees, and holders of special permits, such as the Special Angolan Dispensation, Lesotho Exemption Permit Dispensation, and the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit? What's the extent of them applying for grants, being approved for grants, and being paid out?
These people are here, they've got legal documentation, and all what they simply do is to come to follow the same processes which me and you would follow if we make an application, and they have documentation to be in this country. They do qualify. You know that we were taken to court some years back, and the court made an undertaking that they do qualify to apply. And if it means if the South African Social Security Agency do not follow the court decision, it simply means the CEO of SASSA and the Minister of Social Development must be arrested for being in contempt of court. But I can assure you now, as we speak, Thulasizwe, that there is absolutely no way in which SASSA will pay foreigners who are in the country illegally the 370 or any other grant whatsoever.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. That is Paseka Letsatsi, who is the South African Social Security Agency national spokesperson. Just in conclusion, the figures that are cited in SASSA's media statement that came out yesterday says, as of the 1st of January 2026, SASSA received 14,135 COVID-19 SRD applications from applicants who are either a permanent resident, refugee, or holder of a special permit. Of these, 8,368 applications were approved and 2,690 were paid out, just for completion.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's just a really busy Tuesday morning across the country. A lot of it just pure volume, and it is really the way it's going to be going forward. We're sort of looking at levels starting to standardise now with the last of the schools going back from today. You can see that on the N1 South between Brockfontein and New Road. We're back to pretty solid conditions all the way through. Olifantsfontein coming from the Blue Hill side towards the highways. A really big lot of traffic there to work through. The N1 both ways to Winnie Mandela looking quite slow coming from Rivonia or coming up from the Randburg side. Also the N17 queuing heavy, Boksburg through Wadeville into the construction zone. The N12 crash opposite Lenasia going down towards Klipsray Valley Road, your way to Joburg still there. And once you've worked through that, the N1 through Devlin up into Deepcliff remains absolutely solid today. Durban side, a collision on the M4 around Virginia Airport. It's slow both ways. The collision southbound but northbound heading that way from Blue Lagoon on your way to Umhlanga, really badly backed up as well. Truck crash bluffbound just after the North Dean exit towards the Belleville off-ramp, causing delays. And traffic lights Chotamatala at the N3 are down if you're coming in from North Dale. More problems on your way to central Pietermaritzburg today. Cape Town, Datafontein Road at Mannenberg in the heart of, or Datafontein at Klipfontein in the heart of Mannenberg's crash there, causing quite a big backlog. N1, full of traffic, Belleville, right through the city centre. M3, full of traffic. Here we go, from Constantia right through to Hospital Bend, talking of things getting back to normal. You can see that on that M3 inbound. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Welcome to it. This is season 1 of Playlist happening right here at Maloka, and believe me, it's a party.
Set your reminder, every Friday, 9 p.m. Playlist at Maloka is in the building.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, lots on the agenda that you've actually put on the table, as well as some of what we've been talking about and wanting now to hear your voices on these issues. Let me take a few. It's varied, I promise you. And I say this every day, but I'm always astounded by how many directions we're able to pull our conversation every morning. So there's floods, there's issues around the crashes. People call them accidents. I insist it's a crash. Because very few are actually accidents in the true sense of an oops accident. Anyway, floods, accidents, crashes, scholar transport, and I see one about Paul O'Sullivan. So let me play them in that order.
Quick question. How many of these built areas are below the 100-year flood line? Or are most of the structures that's been damaged above the 100-year flood line? Thank you.
Thank you for that important conversation about the resilience of the infrastructure we build, the areas where people are building this infrastructure. What factors do you take into account?
Thulis, good morning. Thulis, we can add another one to that, believe it or not. There was another accident with scholars in KZN yesterday in Palmtown, where the driver swerved off the road and hit into a tree. Fortunately, nobody died, but I know that 9 school kids were injured. So, what the hell is going on? Brad Marisburg.
Morning, Thulasizwe, Grant from the Free State. I think it's now time, really, not just scholars. How many people die in taxis? Everyone knows it's a death trap, but everyone avoids handling this. This needs to be handled nationally. There are people dying every day. This is really, it's got to epic level. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's various pieces of policy and just the strength of the state in implementing those policies. There's a subtle nuance. A lot of the players in the scholar transport sector are operators and owners in the taxi sector, as you heard from our guest earlier on. But at least in theory and on paper, this is a separate sector under different licensing conditions and protocols, licensed specifically for scholar transportation. But where they converge, those two industries, then it becomes a really complex conversation about enforcement and just holding up of standards. Let me hear what this person has to say about Paul O'Sullivan, and then I'll take your calls.
Good morning, Thulas and the listeners. Mr. Thulas, that guy O'Sullivan, he will never return to South Africa. I promise you that one. He knows he's in big trouble, that guy. Anonymous Kimberly.
All right, thank you for that. I see that the ad hoc committee says they're going to summon him to appear, to force him to appear before the ad hoc committee and testify. So you don't believe that will happen, that he will return to testify. Let me go to the calls. Bramoro in Mangaung. Good morning to you, Bramoro.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. There is a mini SAFM station inside the Ghana High Commission in Pretoria. Kindly pay a visit and you'll be surprised.
Mini SAFM station inside the Ghana Embassy, High Commission,
yes. Yes, in Pretoria. There is a mini SAFM station. You can just even walk in there and just start streaming, working from there. You don't even have to go with your microphones.
Okay.
This is unbelievable.
Oh, okay. There's an idea for Africa Day. There's something we can do.
Thank you. 100%. We can make it work. Bafana Bagana. The relationship. 100%. We struggle too often for a life that can end at any time. These beautiful kids who passed away yesterday weren't born for this. Just like that, they are gone. On behalf of the Ghana High Commissioner, on behalf of Ghanaians, we extend our heartfelt condolence to all the families in South Africa as a whole. This is the right time for us to brainstorm ideas to mitigate this crisis that always confronts us. These beautiful kids have different visions. Today, as I drive my kids to school, I felt that pain in me, asking myself, what are the families of those kids going to feel today?
Yeah.
Waking up early with the intention of bathing your kids, and these kids are no more. Every life needs to be protected, regardless of nationality, tribe, religion, or race. But the least said about the transport sector, the more, the better. My advice would be, if possible, the state should ensure that at least each government school has its own bus that is able to transport the kids, which will be fought or by the SGB, including the school government body, the student, etc. If we struggle to implement some of these basic needs, then the worst of such news will always happen, because this is not the first time, and we pray that this will remain the last time. Lastly, Mr. Tulas, please one day have the management of SAFM on your show for us to ask them why SAFM is unable to grant us at least 2 hours of sports show.
Okay.
Regardless of the
They're
timing,
listening.
just 2 hours.
2 hours of sports show.
Yes.
Gotcha.
At least. We are not asking for more.
Pramoro, thank you. I'm sure they are listening.
Thank you,
We'll bring them on. They must come an account. Andile Mwale and Abotun. They must come here and account. The people want to know. JCK Kaunda in Musina. Good morning to you.
Goeiemôre Thulas, hoe gaan dit
Goeiemôre
vanmôre?
Tate, hoe gaan dit?
Dit gaan goed man.
Dankie man.
Thulas man, maybe I've missed something, you can update me.
Sure.
Did the unions or the government give a statement of sympathy to those people who lost their job, British American Tobacco?
Bazotin. What will they say?
Come again?
What especially the government, what do you say when your failure to protect an industry is leading to these consequences? What is there to say?
But did they issue a statement to sympathize with the nation, the people who lost the jobs?
I haven't seen it, JCK, to be honest.
Yeah, that tells us about a caring of government. You know, because that illicit cigarettes are crossing as I'm speaking to you now at the border, Limpopo River. You understand? If they don't care. That is what I'm afraid. The next to close down will be Coca-Cola, the soft drink. It's Coca-Cola, lemon twist, fake stuffs are sold at expiry shops in large numbers. The government doesn't do anything. I mean, once bitten, twice shy. The government should wake up from their sleep and investigate all these shops, because they're selling fake soft drinks. How many people must lose jobs in South Africa because of negligence and uncaring to us?
Yeah. No, I hear you, JCK. I hear you 100%.
Okay, let me rest my case for now, Tulas.
Thank you very much. JCK Kaunda out in Musina. Let me quickly take Lefuko in the Northwest. Lefuko, what's the word? Good morning.
Good morning, Tulas. You know, some things, you listen to interviews and you just get depressed as a taxpayer. what that Sasa guy was saying. You know, Tulas, what are we doing? How are you going to run a country like this? You're going to render the country broke. And you know what, Tulas? The parliamentarians are supposed to receive an increase or something like that when I read. And for doing nothing. Whenever there's an issue, they do nothing. You say whatever you want to say about Trump. When there's an issue, he does. For example, the president fumbled the spaza shop issue. Should have been taken to parliament. Let these parliamentarians decide what the law says. 2, Dudula had an issue with space or resources. There was no parliamentarian sitting to say, let's look at this issue. Now there's that KZN people complaining about spaces in schools. No parliamentarians are saying, let's sit and look at the law. Like, what are we doing? You know, as a taxpayer, when I just feel so depressed. And that's why I'm so against this NHI, because I'm going to be taxed more and I'm going to be taking care of the entire continent. And this is unfair to us.
Gotcha. Lefuko, thank you for that. We are smack bang at 8 a.m. Let's go straight to Ann Musa, who's got the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, schooling still affected in Limpopo and McBride to appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee. Good morning. More than 450 schools in flood-stricken areas in Limpopo will not open today. The Limpopo Education Department says the schools are not accessible due to overflowing rivers, damaged bridges and muddy roads. The schools are mostly in some parts of Mopani and Vembe districts. Only 7 are affected in the Sekhukhune district. Most schools in the flood-stricken areas did not open for the new academic year last Wednesday due to the flooding. The department says learning and teaching will start at schools which are accessible. The Cape Winelands District Municipality says a fire burning above Franschhoek remains out of control. Spokesperson Joanne Otto says firefighters face challenging conditions overnight, with strong winds driving the fire through the Asachai Bos area. Otto says steep and uneven terrain combined with dense vegetation have limited access for ground crews, forcing teams to focus mainly on protecting properties on surrounding farms. She says some residents have opted to leave their homes as a precaution.
The various partners or agencies will meet this morning to discuss resource deployment and suppression strategies. Residents are advised that water bombing and other fire suppression activities may result in heavy smoke. It is recommended that windows and doors be kept closed, particularly for individuals who are sensitive to smoky air.
The Greater Gauteng Learner Transport Organisation has pinned the blame for the Vanderbijl Park crash in the Vaal, which killed 14 learners on the driver's negligence. The minibus taxi was transporting learners to school when he overtook several vehicles before colliding with a truck. The organization's General Secretary, Sibongile Maseko, says the driver had proper documentation but failed to ensure the safety of the learners in his vehicle. She expressed her sorrow and said they are working with authorities to improve scholar transport safety.
We are deeply saddened and shocked by the devastating accident that happened in the Citibank, where 14 students lost their lives while traveling to school. Our hearts go out to the family and victims, their loved ones, and the entire community affected by this tragedy. We are saddened as an organization. This recent tragedy is caused by negligence of a driver. It's not like the car didn't have brakes or the car was not roadworthy. This operator had an operating license. This operator belonged to an association. This operator had everything that is needed for an operator to operate kids.
Former Independent Police Investigative Directorate Head Robert McBride is expected to appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee probing allegations of criminal infiltration, political interference and corruption within the criminal justice system this morning. McBride's testimony is expected to focus on his central role in some of the most contentious investigations into alleged corruption within the South African Police Service. Mkokeli Bandla reports.
As former head of IPD, McBride worked closely with private investigator Paul O'Sullivan on high-profile cases involving senior police officials, including the controversial investigation into former acting National Police Commissioner Khomotso Phahlane. His evidence is expected to shed light on allegations of political pressure, interference in investigations, and the collapse of corruption cases within the police service, issues that lie at the heart of the committee's mandate. McBride's appearance also comes amid mounting pressure on the committee to compel O'Sullivan to testify in person.
And finally, 8 learners from Milnerton High School are expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court today on charges of assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. A video went viral on social media last year in which a grade 10 learner was beaten with objects including a hockey stick. The court ordered the accused not be identified. 6 of the learners were in grade 12 last year, while 2 were juveniles at the time of the incident. They were released on bail of 2,000 rand. As part of the bail conditions, they may not enter the Milnerton High School premises. Their cell phones were handed over to authorities and the case was postponed for the accused to write exams. Recapping the top story, more than 450 schools in flood-stricken areas in Limpopo will not open today. For SAFM News, I'm Anne Musa.
OutSurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. 63-year-old Almero knows all about saving with OutSurance.
We do save 417 Rand. That's about 5,000 Rand a year.
That's an awesome saving on Almero's 2021 Ford Ranger.
And there's an out bonus that you get if you don't claim for 3 years. I am really looking forward to it.
How much money could OutSurance save you? Get a quote now. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. It's soccer action tonight as Kaizer Chiefs are backing their belief as they take on Golden Arrows. And in the United Rugby Championship, the Stormers youngster, De Villiers, is looking forward to playing against Siya Kolisi. We'll have the details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Still very heavy on the run north from the southern parts of Joburg. That N1 from the Potch Highway up through Diffcliff towards Uncle Charlie's. Really a very busy morning. Second one in a row. N3 Germiston to Edenvale via Galulis is pretty tight. The N17 from Boksburg through Wadeville on your way to Joburg. Single lane roadwork section there causing delays. And if you want an indication of how busy it is today, the N1 coming through Midrand. It's heavy from Brockfontein all the way down to New Road. Olifantsfontein from Blue Hills towards the highway. Really jam-packed as well. Durban, a crash on the M4 Ruth First Highway near Virginia Airport. Heavy both ways between Umhlanga and Blue Lagoon. As a result of that, the M4 Southern Freeway queuing as you turn off the N2 and head up towards the Jacobs area. Cape Town, the N1, very slow inbound this morning from Belleville all the way through to the city centre. Plenty of traffic on the M3 as well between Constantia and Hospital Bend, and the Danafontaine Road coming off the N2 jammed into Manenberg due to a crash at Klipfontein. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 8, welcome to it, the third hour of the Morning Brief on this Tuesday. The conversation this morning is exploding in a beautiful way, and I'm hoping that somewhere in between us grappling and lamenting all of the problems and issues we are dealing with as a country, somewhere in that friction we will be able to workshop some solutions with the hope that those with the wherewithal will then take forward some of the issues that are coming through from this conversation. Someone here says, for example, it is very sad what happened yesterday to those scholars losing their lives in that manner. But what is really worrying me is that I am just coming from work and I saw 5, if not 6, school transport doing the same, overtaking on the wrong side of the road. Something needs to be done because it seems as if these drivers don't care, says that person. So in Bloemfontein says, taxis and initiation school deaths. Taxis and initiation school deaths are a national crisis, but we are always reactionary, says so in Bloemfontein. Another issue that's resonating quite significantly is the one that has to do, I think one caller that raised it about the announcement by British American Tobacco that by the end of this year, their manufacturing plant in Heidelberg will close, largely because of illicit cigarettes that have taken over the industry, making it not viable really for them to continue to manufacture. They will now import like everyone else. Well, not like everyone else, in the sense that they say they will continue to import, through the proper ways and the proper channels. Jan in Cape Town then says on that, if cigarette manufacturers are closing due to illegal cigarettes smuggled over the border, doesn't it also put other products manufactured here at risk? What is the government doing to stop it? Asks Jan in Cape Town. Then Soviet in King Williamstown picks up on that theme that Jan has started and says, JCK Kaunda is 100% correct. The soft drink industry is next, and Coca-Cola's days are numbered. Illegal soft drinks have taken over, says Soviet in King Williamstown. And Nati in Cape Town then says, regarding BAT's closure, it cannot only be as a result of illicit cigarettes. Advertising ban and also people starting to behave and adopting a healthier lifestyle can be attributes too. Sure, Nati, that is, those are factors, absolutely. But as far as the advertising ban is concerned, that has been in place for the better part of the last 2 decades. One imagines that the industry had already priced that in and had factored that in. The healthy lifestyles, yes, that's another factor. But the industry itself tells you that 75% of cigarettes being smoked in this country right now are illicit cigarettes. When you are saddled with costs of manufacturing and doing things the right way, and the other people don't have those costs, don't pay tax, you can only imagine the competitiveness imbalance that is produced by that. Do continue and keep the conversation going on 086 000 2032 or your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Let's get into it. The third hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief.
Get Barter school shoes at Spar for 75 Rand when you spend 350 Rand or more and swipe your rewards card. Buy 1 litre Spar Long Life Milk, 6-pack, full cream or low fat for 89.99 plus 200 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 750 gram Nescafe Real Coffee tin or 800 gram pouch for 129.99 plus 300 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid from 20 Jan till 8 Feb while stocks last. Only at Spar. T's and C's.
Babina Noko want to rubber stamp that umnandi in the top half, while Ezimnyama Ngenkani are highly spirited to make this their season to shine. This is the Bigway Premiership. Nisekazini forever. Catch Skukune United versus Orlando Pirates on Saturday, 24 January at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Then on SABC radio stations at 3:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
There's a song that goes, "Money can't buy me love." And that's true. But then they told us all you need is love, which anybody with a mortgage will tell you most certainly is not true. Love won't pay your parking tickets or your student loan. It's also needy. It requires effort, availability, constant care. But more importantly, love requires time. And while money can't buy you love, it can certainly free up some of your time. Time to spend on the things you love, with the people you love. And if you're looking, maybe even time to find the one you love. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you love. And don't you love that about investing? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me start with a call from Peter in Mthatha, who wants to talk about Denel this morning. The state arms manufacturer Denel is on your mind this morning. Peter, good morning to you.
King Honorable Thulas and the listeners of SAFM. And I'm a taxpayer. As a taxpayer, I am grieved by what I read on Defense Web, a news outlet that speaks about the armies of the military in Africa. So according to the Defense Web, and they saying that it has also SIU, our SIU has confirmed that this has happened. There has been a looting at a large scale of Denel. The company that was owned by Guptas selling lasers for army, it infiltrated by being formed under Denel. And what they did, they have costed Denel billions in money that was supposed to be, projects that were supposed to be executed by Denel. They were pushed to the company of the Guptas. Those are contracts that were worth billions. And then also there's the information that is the classified information. Denel is regarded worldwide as high-tech in manufacturing. They are respected in manufacturing the weapons.
Yeah.
So now the laser company has stolen information that is classified.
The IP.
From Denel. The company of the Guptas took that information to EU, United Emirates. As we are speaking now, the United Emirates has manufactured weapons that came from the information that came from South Africa. They are mass manufacturing the weapons, and they are also manufacturing the weapons for themselves.
All right, Peter.
So that is national security, is a threat to national security.
Peter, thank you for that. Thank you for putting that issue on the table. I do need to move on, Peter, and take other calls, but you've put an important issue on the table, and it might be something worth us revisiting and explaining and expanding with someone who is an expert and watches that particular industry, arms manufacturing, and the subsequent investigations around Denel. Let's speak to Khomotso in Standerton. Good morning to you, Khomotso.
Morning to us. How do you do, Nabala?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. As to us, this thing of scholar transport, that's it is not proper, my brother. Look, a lot of taxis, we see them in the morning when they're delivering our school children. They park aside, exchange students, and exchange learners via their taxis, one from another taxi to the other, so that they can easily drop them at different locations. But such has not been agreed upon with their parents. Imagine to us, if your child has left home in a quantum and then he or she falls into an accident and we lose his or her life while she was now traveling in a microbus. You understand the pain that is going to be suffering out of that.
That's one of the other practices,
It needs serious revamping and relooking. I'm not even sure if the comprehensive passenger liability insurance is part of their requirements for them to register for scholar transport. I'm not sure, but it must be looked upon, such things.
I agree.
And then the second issue, Chilas, the issue of the salary increases of the parliamentarians, the 3.8%.
Yes.
That thing is a spit on the faces of the public servants. Look to us, not only on the public servants, actually to the whole country, to the entire citizens of the country. Look to us. Those people have got a lot of benefits that are there. We know that we've got people who are living in extreme poverty.
Yeah.
So why would you, while somebody's got so many benefits, you top their salary with 100,000, while they've still got so many benefits, while there are people who are unemployed? I mean, it needs to be rules. Our president needs to really look at everything from all angles.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for that, Khomotso. Also putting another issue on the agenda that I think we must come back to in the coming days. The salary adjustments for public representatives in this country, a topic that is, on the table at the moment. Lebohang in Tshwane, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tulas.
Good morning.
Yes, I want to talk about the scholar transport, the scholar accident transport.
Yes.
Tulas, we must also look at the main reason or the main cause of this, which is the failure of government. Government is failing to place our kids at the nearest schools where they reside. And when they do place them there, it's schools that are not well equipped. And at the end of the day, parents end up having to try to take their kids to better schools. And that is one of the causes of these accidents that we end up having. So us as citizens, we must also take responsibility and accountability for failing to put the politicians to account. Because as a result of that, our kids are dying on the road.
Yeah.
And we continuously hand the government keys to the same politicians who are killing our kids. And this has to come to an end.
All
because
right.
if you look at this, Tulas, this basically, year in, year out, it only affects black kids. Because the white kids and other kids who are next to developed schools, they don't have to travel over distances. Wherever they have to travel, the speed limit will be 60.
Yeah.
And the accident wouldn't be as bad as these ones that we see.
Yeah.
Because our kids have to travel long distances.
Yeah.
So we have to put these people into account.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Lebohang. And it's interesting that you raised the issue of placement of pupils. A couple of days ago on SABC News, I was speaking to Steve Mabona of the Gauteng Department of Education, and we were debating this question of placement in schools that are further away from the homes of these pupils. And you are saying that doesn't happen. It's simply because a parent will have applied for a particular school and have a second school as a second option or a third school as a third option. When they are given a school that is 2 kilometers or so away from their original preferred school, it then comes across as if they are being placed far in a far-off school. But the experience of many parents suggests that many of them have been placed in schools that are really, really not convenient as far as distance is concerned, with the result that some of them now need to use scholar transport. Tsiamo in Joburg, good morning. Short and sharp for me, please.
Yeah, very simple. It's impractical, Thulasizwe, for us to carry migrants in our country. When I say carry, I'm talking about provide them with services that are supposed to be provided to citizens. It's practically impossible, meaning that our constitution or our laws presently are in direct conflict to the interest of the people of South Africa. It's as simple as that. It's not possible. We can't do it. And I wish South Africans could really look at this with clarity and practicality. We cannot do it. It simply cannot be done. That's all I needed to say.
Yeah, thank you for that, Siamo. Of course, the experience of other countries that deal with the issue of migration is instructive in this issue. The comparisons have been drawn with countries such as those in North America, or Canada, where they generally offer faster work permits for asylum seekers, promoting earlier economic integration and less reliance on welfare. Then you have countries in the EU, in Europe, Netherlands, Sweden, and Ireland that are said to have strong social safety nets, but asylum seekers' access varies, some offering housing or cash support during the processing of the applications, while integration programs are also said to be key post-recognition as a refugee. So it's all very interesting comparing what other countries in similar situations dealing with these issues, the realities of migration, how they are handling these particular questions.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, unfair blacklisting, or an uncontested divorce, Clientele Legal offers professional legal services to all South Africans. Our plans are affordable, and you receive up to 745,000 rand worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our nationwide legal teams are standing by to support you 24 hours a day. Plus, all plans include a 5,000 rand bail benefit. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
When you train for results, you don't quit halfway. Earn up to 7.35% interest with a Nedbank Just Invest account. Access your money within 24 hours. Keep your money agile. Get money fit with Nedbank. See money differently. Nedbank. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. We're licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Mzansi Powerball has skyrocketed to an epic 177 million rand estimated jackpot this Tuesday, the second highest ever recorded jackpot in Ituba's history. Play now and you could win big, just like Friday's Powerball Plus winner who bagged over 33 million rand via the National Lottery platform. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or star 120 star 7529 hash for USSD. Panda, Pusha, Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
25 minutes after 8. Well, that crash that happened in Vanderbijl Park puts a different twist to this conversation. While most of us were not paying much attention during the December craze, a truly important development quietly took shape in the space of child and teenage welfare and protection. Cabinet has approved the National Strategy to Accelerate Action for Children, NSAAC. We're told it's a forward-looking framework designed to tackle the deep-rooted challenges that millions of South African children and adolescents face every day. The strategy lays out 10 national priorities, from closing the food gap and boosting early learning to protecting children and teens from abuse and harmful substances. Let's hear all about it. Writing about it in Daily Maverick has been David Harrison, the CEO of the DG Murray Trust and co-lead of the Hold My Hand Accelerator. Good morning to you, David, and thank you for your time. I read your piece, but I just want you to bring our listeners up to speed. Why is the adoption by Cabinet of this national strategy on children and adolescents and teenagers important?
Well, thank you so much for having me. We've made a lot of progress over the last 30 years in reducing child poverty, improving access to education, improving child mortality. But over the last few years, many of these gains seem to be faltering. And the problem is that these are leads of the future of the country's wealth and health and well-being. If our children are not thriving, our tomorrow is going to be worse than today. And so it's absolutely critical that we relook at what we're doing, celebrate the progress that we've made over the last 30 years, but understand that we're now a bit in the doldrums, and we have to find ways to accelerate the gains over the next 20 years. Otherwise, we're heading for a type of future that none of us want.
So in your piece, you make the point, David, that the wording and framing of the strategy is so simple that it appears to be banal. But you say something in that banality of it all that is quite important if implemented effectively. Take me through the points that are being made, the 10 national priorities and the simplicity with which they are stated versus the potential impact if there's follow through.
Yes, so I mean, the place to start is that children are programmed to thrive from conception upwards, and all they need are very, very basic ingredients of love, food, safety, brain stimulation, healthcare. That's basically it. I mean, these are the most basic but powerful ingredients that can make a massive difference. And so what this strategy does for the first time is it identifies the 10 priorities related to these core ingredients that will make the most progress. One is to strengthen families and enable parents and caregivers to care for their children, and particularly to be able to stimulate the children intellectually, language development, early learning. We have to continue to reduce infant and child deaths. We've got to totally eliminate HIV transmission in the country. It can be done. An absolute core priority is to improve child nutrition. It's a constitutional imperative, but it's the only way in which we're going to ensure long-term economic growth. We've got to build our children's brain power through early learning and language development. And we mustn't forget about those children who are disabled. We have to prevent disability, and those children who are disabled must have the same opportunities as others. A critical one is to protect our children and teens from all forms of abuse, violence, injury, and harmful substance. And here we've got to home in on issues like heavy drinking in this country, which is one of the biggest factors driving harm of our children. We've got to give teens access to healthcare, including sexual and reproductive health, expand participation in quality education and connection to work for school leavers. And finally, we've got to ensure that our teenagers who at the moment are feeling marginalized and polarized, we've got to find ways to give them a sense of agency, identity, and connectedness by building networks of support.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for sharing those insights. That's David Harrison. He's the CEO of the DG Murray Trust and co-lead of the Hold My Hand Accelerator. Look out for that piece by David Harrison. You can read more comprehensively and extensively on this new strategy. It's on Daily Maverick, so look it up and you can engage with it there. Let me go to Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, 6 people have been shot and killed in separate incidents in Cape Town. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says no arrests have been made. The Gauteng chairperson of taxi organisation Santaco says the minibus involved in yesterday's horrific crash that killed 14 learners in Vanderbijlpark is a scholar transport vehicle. 4 others, including the driver of the minibus taxi, were taken to hospital following the collision involving his vehicle and a truck. And more than 450 schools in flood-stricken areas in Limpopo will not open today. The Limpopo Education Department says the schools are not accessible due to overflowing rivers, damaged bridges and muddy roads. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Been a really busy Tuesday as we sort of get back to normal on the roads. I'm sure if you've been driving routes this morning, you would have felt that. It just feels busy, just feels like there's more traffic around. Some of the hotspots this morning, N1 both ways to William Mandela, still queuing up there. The Mike 1 from Buccleuch down through Woodmead to Greyston Drive is very slow. And the Mike 1 North still jam-packed from Gold Reef City up through the Crown in towards the Braamfontein area. Durban, an earlier crash near Virginia Airport on the M4 means traffic just a little bit slow still. It's off its worst, but there's just a bit of sluggishness on the M4 around Virginia Airport, and it's heavy now on the N2 going north. A breakdown after Spaghetti Junction. You've also got the roadworks and now a crash before Umgeni. The N2 backed up heavily from around about Booth Road Bridge. Crash on the M7 involving a truck just past the North Dean exit if you're on your way to the Bluff or approaching sort of Queensborough. That's very slow. Cape Town jamming up on the N2 both ways through the Somerset West area all of a sudden. Van Riebeeck Road is quite heavy, both into Belleville or out of Belleville to Cowes River at the R300, and still a lot of pressure on the M7 going north, leaving Goodwood. Traffic lights are down at Franz Conradi, and then a backlog through towards the Bosmansdam Road exit. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you. Talk to me about the Amakosi. You are saying they are backing the belief over buying. What do you mean by that?
So there's January sales happening everywhere with all the clubs, except at Kaizer Chiefs.
Oh,
they are saying
they are believers, not buyers.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Chiefs are very calm, all right? They're very composed, and they are backing what they already have. That's in the kitty tonight when they take on Golden Arrows. So it's going to be an exciting time. Their co-coach Cedric Case insists the Amakosi are not pressing any panic buttons. They've measured their approach. They're preparing now for that crucial home clash against Arrows at FNB Stadium tonight.
We have done our preparations. We have played friendly games. We have prepared ourselves very well. We are confident for the game tomorrow. We're playing against a very good team that has always given us a very tough game. But we know what we want. We try to minimize the fine margins, and by working on the small details to allow us to start on the front foot, because it's very important to start on the front foot. As you can see, the top of the log is a bit crowded, and I'm pretty sure that everyone wants to stay within the top for the coming few weeks.
That's the Kaizer Chiefs co-coach Cedric Hayes here on the morning brief. Let's go to the story. Good news for South Africa's under-19 squad. They're at the World Cup in Windhoek. They crashed Tanzania by 329 runs. Jason Rolls and Mohamed Bulbulia struck commanding centuries as the young Proteas piled up a record of 397 for 5. Rolls then completed a standout all-round performance, taking 2 wickets, effectively affecting 2 runouts and earning player of the match honours. Tanzania bowled out for just 68. And the Stormers in rugby, they insist the Coastal Derby on Saturday against the Sharks won't be about individual matchups, even with Siya Kolisi back in the opposition jersey. In form fetcher Paul de Villiers says the focus remains on standards and team execution as the Stormers look to protecting their unbeaten URC home record. And finally, boxing promoter Eddie Hearn says Tyson Fury remains in his prime, welcoming the heavyweight's decision to return in 2026. The 37-year-old has not fought since defeats to Alexander Usyk and is expected to take a warm-up bout before a major showdown later this year. A potential clash with Anthony Joshua is on hold as Joshua takes time away from boxing following that fatal car crash involving close team members. That's your sport. We leave it for now in the boxing ring. John Herricker will have his gloves on at around 12:30. I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Let's start in the pharmaceuticals sector. Tell me about Aspen setting its sights on a Canadian generic weight loss drug market.
That's right, Tula. So the pharmaceutical company is preparing to launch one of the world's first generic versions of Novo Nordisk's semaglutide in Canada, where patent protection for the drug has expired. Semaglutide, of course, is used to treat type 2 diabetes and obesity. And Canada is seen as an important test market for generic drug makers looking to break into a highly lucrative segment that has, until now, been dominated by costly branded medicines, the likes of Ozempic and Mounjaro. Now, Aspen CEO Stephen Sard said performance in Canada could indicate how companies will fare globally as patents begin to lapse in major markets from this year. Aspen, however, will face strong competition, with Health Canada having received multiple applications for generic semaglutide from global rivals. Now, generic versions are expected to significantly undercut current prices, which remain out of reach for many patients and health systems.
Forgive me, I need to fix my English there.
What did you say?
I used the indefinitive article as opposed to the definitive article. I said Aspen is setting its sights on a Canadian generic weight loss drug market when it is supposed to be the Canadian. It's a small thing, but no, it actually matters. It came across just wrong. Let's talk mining. Tell me about Sibanye slowing down its lithium rollout.
The miner will move ahead with its European lithium ambitions through a phased rollout of the Calibre project, opting for a slower start after project costs climbed last year. Now, the group said the staged approach allows spending and refinery ramp-up costs to be deferred, giving flexibility to respond to lithium prices and broader market conditions. Sibanye CEO Richard Stewart said the decision was made with its partner, the Finnish Minerals Group, after a full review of the project. He described the gradual start-up as the safest and most sensible way to manage risks while keeping the project on track. Now, Sibanye owns almost 80% of the Calibre project in Finland and has already secured about 500 million euros in green financing. Once fully up and running, the mine and refinery are expected to produce enough lithium each year to support Europe's growing electric vehicle battery market.
All right, Dowling, let's now wrap it all nicely for us and just give us a sense of the day ahead for us in the markets.
So local markets likely to open mixed to last, with the volatility due to President Trump's tariff threats still in play, that triggering a flight for safety. Also, we're likely going to see a continued uptick in resources, but other indices likely to remain under pressure. The rand, in the meantime, making gains on the back of higher metals prices and a soft dollar, sitting at 16.40 against the greenback. Against the pound, the local unit is on the back foot at 22.04. It's also weaker against the euro at 19.14. Further, just highlighting those currency dynamics where we are seeing a weaker dollar at play and not necessarily a stronger rand. Then moving over to crude, prices remain unchanged, but traders are eyeing geopolitical issues and how that could impact the market. Oil trading just below $63 a barrel this hour. Stateside, futures in the red as President Trump doubles down, that is, on his EU tariff threats, that also weighing on Asian markets, with those stocks on track to close the day in negative territory.
See, I'm spending too much time with you. Sa go Rodine is rubbing off on me.
Oh my gosh, here we go again.
Definitive article in, yeah, it's good for me. Spending all that time with Darling Lichel. Thank you for that. She's kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets.
30-year-old Dineo knows all about saving on her car insurance with Outsurance.
I'm saving 1,094 rands.
That's an unbelievable 1,094 rand monthly saving on Dineo's 2025 Kia Sonet. And she'll get an out bonus.
If I'm claim-free for 3 years, then I get an out bonus back.
Ready to see how much money Outsurance could save you? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insuring FSP. TCs and information online.
I don't love going to school. I don't love sitting in a classroom with 50 other children. But I do love learning. Ndiyakuthanda ukufunda isiXhosa as a language. I do love getting good grades. I do love UCT Online High School because I do love my future. Apply online before the 26th of January.
SABC2 is stepping into a new era, Papa, where every moment tells a story. A new era of conversations with Enklik Let's Connect at 4:30 p.m., bringing real talk and South African voices. A new era of Afrikaans news at 6:30 p.m., trusted information in the language you love. A new era of family entertainment, Omar Sari at 7 p.m., celebrating humor, tradition and togetherness. A new era of excitement in a new time slot, Deal or No Deal at 7:30 p.m., bringing primetime thrills home. A new era of drama, Pimville at 9 p.m., a brand new powerful telenovela from Soweto that grips the heart, and a new era of flavor with a new season of Color Your Plate with Koo, Sundays at 7 p.m. A new era begins on SABC2.
Babinanuko want to rubber stamp that kumnandi in the top half, while Esimnyama Ngenkani are highly spirited to make this their season to shine. This is the Betway Premiership. Lesekazini forever. Catch Skukune United versus Orlando Pirates on Saturday, 24 January at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Then on SABC radio stations at 3:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, we've got lots of voice notes, a lot of voice notes, varied topics on the table as well. Let me start with these ones that are reflecting on the conversation we had earlier on with Paseka Letsatsi from the South African Social Security Agency, where they were clarifying that there's been no change in policy as far as the eligibility criteria for the Social Relief of Distress grant and access thereto by certain categories of foreign nationals, certainly those with permanent residence as well as refugee status, and just what are the prescripts, and saying that there's been nothing new but other than the policies that have been in place all along.
Hi Thulas, hey Agunzima. So we are working so hard to feed the whole of Africa. I don't foresee this happening in any other African country where we go there and we qualify for grants. No, this is a shock, really. No. If democracy looks like this, then I don't think it's what I signed up for. Kunzima. Thank you.
Good day, Mngoni. I think what is the challenge here is that there are people who are not living in the country. They travel into the country to get this 350 rand and then they go back home.
Yep.
I know a lot of people where I come from. MVP.
Leakages is what they call it. We've not even grappled with that. Leakages, especially in the Southern African region of neighboring states. But nah.
Hi, Thulas. These regulations must really be looked at. It cannot be that they are paying foreign nationals, whether permanent resident here legally and they permits, they pay them SASSA grants. This is, this must really be relooked at. It's nonsensical, really. It's nonsensical. So now the burden goes on to the South African taxpayers to accommodate these foreign nationals. No.
Morning, Thulas. I was just listening to your interview with the representative from SASSA. So the confusion that they try to clarify is that their policies has not been amended to include asylum seekers, refugees and whatnot. But those very same people, if they submit an application for SASSA grants, they are still eligible to get it if they are approved. That's the confusion that they wanted to clarify.
Hi, Thulas and SAFM listeners. If I had an option or a way, I would have dodged paying a tax. And I mean it. I would have dodged paying a tax. How do I pay a tax to somebody who has an asylum seeker? The people who are going home in December. What? South Africa is taking us for a ride. Thulas, Sello, Rodoport.
Yeah, look, part of it is the design and the scheme of the Constitution and what it provides for by way of the rights to dignity and the likes. Then add to that South Africa's responsibilities as far as refugee law is concerned, international law is concerned. I'm not justifying Nkosi, and take me to the cleaners. I'm just putting context. When Paseka was talking about if they as SASSA decide on their own to say we're not going to give grants to these people, they'll soon find themselves in a spot of bother with the courts of this country, as has happened. The litigation has happened. So what I'm saying is the conversation is broader than, we can all froth at the mouth at SASSA and what they are doing. The conversation is bigger. It's about how do we fulfill our international obligations without overly burdening what with the fiscus and what we are able to do quite realistically. What are the sources of potential support for refugees and asylum seekers can we possibly marshal such that we protect some of these systems while allowing pathways where those pathways are due and are supposed to happen. I know it's not the answer you want, it's not the clarity you want, but that's the best I can give in terms of just adding a bit more context to that. Let me take a traffic update and I'll come back with your calls.
FlySafair has been named the most on-time airline in Africa and the Middle East by Cirium, world leader in aviation analytics. That's 3 years in a row we've been recognized for reliably getting you to the places and faces you love. But reliability doesn't come from shortcuts. It comes from care, consistency, and a commitment to service excellence. Because getting you there on time isn't just what we promise, it's what we do. FlySafair, for the love of flying.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still reasonably busy for this time of morning. It has been a back to sort of normal high volume day across many of the big cities around the country. The Mike 1, good example of that from Buccleuch, coming off the N1 all the way down to Grayston Drive, onto Corlett Drive, very slow Woodmead through to Melrose. Northbound, there's quite a backlog coming up from Melrose in towards that Grayston exit as well. Still jammed on the N1 both ways into Winnie Mandela Drive, and a crash from much earlier this morning on the N12 leaving Protea Glen up through Lenasia, approaching Klipspruit Valley Drive. That run through remains problematic as well. Bit of traffic queuing on the R21 into the construction by Olifantsfontein Road this morning. So if you're on your way out of the airport towards Pretoria, just watch for that. Durban, the N2 running northbound, has a crash and a breakdown between Spaghetti Junction and Umgeni Road. The crashing is the last of the obstructions you'll pass. That's just around the Clare Road Bridge. So once you get north of the M7, up around Booth Road Bridge territory, through 4 level on your way towards Umgeni Road, absolutely jam-packed through there. Don't forget the closure of the N3 for blasting today. It'll repeat tomorrow and Thursday. 3 consecutive days of 30-minute full closures. 3 p.m. until 3:30 this afternoon between New England Road and Ashburton. You can divert off at those closure points or sit and be stacked up towards the blasted Market Road. And Cape Town's just been a crash on the N2 inbound near the N7, so delays building up again from the airport. The N7 north through Goodwood up to Bosmansdam stays busy, and there's still a lot of traffic this time of day from Tableview heading out along Marine Drive towards Sunset Beach. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Hello, January. You feel different to December. December was nice, wasn't it? January is strange like that. Because as much as December was easy, January is hard. Giving things up, getting fit, looking ahead, making plans, changing plans. And 11 months later, it's December again. And on it goes. Year after year after year. The thing is, December is how you should feel when you retire. And all the time you spend getting there should make it worth it. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you want to do. Like turning your Januaries into Decembers. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's push as much as possible, yeah? Short and sharp if you don't mind. Good morning to you, Lubabalo in Kukuletu.
Hi, Thulas. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, how are you? Please go ahead.
Oh, yes, sir. Listen, I need you to please arrange to get the Lieutenant General Tembisile Patekile.
Mm-hmm.
He's the police commissioner in the Western Cape.
Yes.
What I've noticed about the commissioner is that he's clueless in how to fix or how to resolve criminal activities happening in Cape Town, especially in the Cape Flats, where massacres are happening every weekend to us.
Yeah.
And the man has absolutely no solution. He comes up and says that he's short staff, there's a shortage and backlogs. It's absolutely, ridiculous. Keeping him in power in his seat right now is costing people's lives. It's very expensive to keep this man in his position. Now, recently, the mayor of Cape Town, Gordon Hill-Lewis, has come out and say he's going to build a wall, to separate the Cape Flats, to the N2 and to the affluent suburbs, which means that the whole ecosystem and how these people are working together with the police and the mayor, it's non-existent. And guess who is affected? It's us. The Cape Townians, people are dying.
Yeah, absolutely, Lubabalo. I mean, we were meant to speak to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron. We were initially, when we framed the conversation, we were talking about 26 people having died over one weekend in the Cape Flats. Guess what? Just as we've been on air, breaking news coming in, 6 more people shot and killed in and around Cape Town. So that just tells you just the seriousness of that violence epidemic in the Western Cape. Ziggy, also in Cape Town. Good morning to you.
Good morning to us and good morning to your listeners. To us, just quickly,
sure.
At the heart of lawlessness, whether it's taxi drivers killing school children, whether it's extortionists, whether it's people crossing the border illegally, at the heart of this problem it is the government that has hopelessly failed to conduct a risk assessment, a country's risk assessment. You can ask yourself the question. When the president is sitting with his risk control officers, the Minister of Police, the Minister of Defense, and so forth, what is it that they are talking about? Because South Africans are exposed to dangers on a daily basis. If you look at a township like Mamelodi, Mamelodi is 100% under the control of criminal gangs. If you speak to anybody in Mamelodi, they will tell you, I was home now in December.
Yeah.
They will tell you that we are even scared to go to the police station because we know that the police stations are under the direct control of Boko Haram. I've come to learn about a case when I was home in Mamelodi, that a young man who's fixing gearbox trying to make a living, the gangs took his buggy because he didn't pay them 30,000 rand. When he goes to the police station, the very same police officers at Mamelodi West police station tells him that, yeah, but we can make it, we can help you to get your buggy back. Give them something, man. Just give them,
Imagine that.
come up with 20,000
Imagine
to
that.
give these thugs.
Yeah.
You know, Thulas, these thugs, they're not even hiding themselves.
Yeah.
In Mamelodi, they've got an office. The police officers, everybody knows where these people are operating from. But there's nobody who is willing to stand up to protect the communities.
Yeah.
And the government is at fault to us.
Yeah.
South Africans need to rise and get rid of this political dumb cops.
All right.
So that
Thank you for that.
after 2029, we can have our country back. Thank you, Thulas.
Ziggy, thank you for that. Strong words coming through from Ziggy on an issue that I think I've made my views known about a state that has the wherewithal, but it's impotent, basically. Yeah, I don't want to go there. Max in Tshwane, good morning.
Good morning, Thulas, and compliments of a new season, Thulas.
Compliments to you. Please go ahead.
The issue of flood, it will stay with us for a very long time, Thulas. If you check our rural areas where most of us come from, there's no engineer or surveyor who check where they place those people. It's low land areas. You just go to Induna. Induna will give you a certain portion of the land somewhere else. Nobody sees what is happening there. Example of Msholuz next to White River. That place, even the municipal was against it to be built for the people to live there. But guess what? People force themselves. They've built there. What happened now? Look at the in Pretoria. There was a lot of rain, but it's developed that place. You've got a lot of pipes and everything that did the same. So the problem that we have, we are putting our people in low-lying areas where you can say there's climate change and whatever, but that thing has been happening since I was a young boy there in Bushbuckridge. Something needs to change. Something needs to be done.
That's a great point you're making. Thank you for that, Max. The conversation should involve other stakeholders responsible for planning that are not necessarily the municipality, especially in those rural areas. Mpo, you put me on hold. Let's try Mpo again, guys. I think Mpo.
Your call has been placed on hold. Please
I'm
wait.
putting you on hold, Mpo. That's Mpo there in Rustenburg. Wanted to talk about the South African Social Security Agency. Let me take this voice note about Beitbridge border post.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. This is VA from Mohali City in Rustenburg. Thulasizwe, I'm crossing the Beitbridge border twice every week. I'm surprised in Zimbabwe, the Remington gold is being manufactured in Zimbabwe, but it's not even sold in Zimbabwe. It's only sold here in South Africa. And the BMA officials, they are stinking rich. They are rich, those guys. Oh, thank you.
Oh, Thulasizwe Simelane and the SAFM. Thulasizwe, you see, on road with the taxis and the school transport, in the road, you see like maybe the police or the traffic cops, going into the window of the driver. After that, and then there's a smile, and then they going back. But you can even see as a motorist that this car is en route with it. But they care less because they driving this. The traffic cops and the police, they driving the government Luxurian car.
Morning to us. You know what happened in Van der Bay? It's a sad story, but the unfortunate part it's the authorities, the like of your president, your MECs, they'll come and say we condemn it. We're gonna overhaul this industry. We're gonna bring about changes, but nothing happens. These things have been happening for a long time, but there's no change into this industry. They are quiet about it because at the end of the day, it's not their kids who are affected, and it's sad.
All right, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for taking the time to spend the time with us this morning and for your robust engagement as always. The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana is up next here on SAFM after the news at 9 with N. Musa. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane and you've been briefed.
Thanks to us. In our top stories, 6 people killed in Cape Town shooting and Bobi Wine speaks from hiding after disputed election. Good morning. 6 people have been gunned down in separate incidents in Cape Town. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says officers responded to a report in Ndabeni where they found 4 people dead inside an informal dwelling. The motive for the incident is unclear. He says in a separate incident, 2 men were killed and 2 others wounded in a suspected gang-related shooting near the cemetery in Kensington. Trout says no arrests have been made.
The South African Police Service in the Western Cape strongly condemns the senseless and brutal acts of violence that claimed 4 lives in Maitland and 2 lives in Kensington during separate shooting incidents in the early hours of this morning. Our detectives are working tirelessly, following up on every lead to identify and apprehend those responsible. SAPS will not tolerate this level of violence and will pursue the perpetrators relentlessly with the full might of the law until they are brought to justice.
The Gauteng chairperson of taxi organisation Santaco, Midday Mali, says the minibus involved in yesterday's horrific crash that killed 14 learners in Vanderbijlpark is a scholar transport vehicle. 4 others, including the driver of the minibus taxi, were taken to hospital following the collision involving the vehicle and a truck. Mali, who visited the crash scene, says the driver belongs to the scholar transport industry.
Most importantly, what I would want to confirm is that the vehicle that was involved in a horrific accident is not a taxi, but it is a minibus. The vehicle that was involved in an accident, it belongs to a scholar transport full-time, permanently. So therefore, the vehicle was traveling from Sebokeng to Vanderbijlpark, different schools, to go and offload the kids. Hence, it met an accident. But the allegation or the eyewitness that were there, they said the driver overtook about 3-4 vehicles at a go. Hence, it has created that a horrific incident.
More than 450 schools in flood-stricken areas in Limpopo will not open today. The Limpopo Education Department says the schools are not accessible due to overflowing rivers, damaged bridges and muddy roads. The schools are mostly in some parts of Mopani and Vembe districts. Only 7 are affected in the Sekhukhune district. Most schools in the flood-stricken areas did not open for the new academic year last Wednesday due to the flooding. Former IPID head Robert McBride is expected to respond to serious allegations when he appears before Parliament's ad hoc committee looking into national security concerns this morning. At least 2 witnesses who testified before the committee, Chief of Staff in the Police Ministry, Cedric Nkabinde, and former Acting National Police Commissioner, Khumutso Patlane, have accused McBride of working with private investigator Paul O'Sullivan and a network of journalists to run coordinated media campaigns to discredit them and blocking Patlane's permanent appointment as National Police Commissioner. This is what Patlane said last week under oath.
The attacks directed at me by Robert McBride and O'Sullivan and their sustained campaign through the media, both print and electronic, bears testimony to their control of individual journalists whom they weaponize against me. A propaganda machinery unleashed by McBride and O'Sullivan was spearheaded by a select group of journalists whom I know, by the way, and I'll name them here if need be. Marian Tem is one of those people. Karima Brown, she's one of those people. Abraham Mashiro is one of those people. Barry Bateman is one of those people. So you have got a whole range of people that were working on the Pahlane project.
And finally, the Ugandan opposition leader Bobi Wine says he'll continue to stand up to President Yoweri Museveni despite his election defeat last week. Speaking from hiding, Wine said that it was now up to the Ugandan people to rid themselves of a dictator, as no state body would.
Protests are constitutional. They are allowed as per Article 29 of our Constitution. So we have encouraged the people of Uganda to evoke any constitutional and legal means of fighting back against this injustice, to fighting back to protect their democracy.
Recapping the top stories, 6 people have been gunned down in separate incidents in Cape Town. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says the motive for the incidents is unclear. For SAFM News, I am Ann Musa.
Sanibonani dumelang absheni lochani Mzansi igama lam nguzanele untomdodwa izinhluzalza, but you can simply call me Uzanele Mthombeni. I am your new host khona yi Ekaslami, the TV show that profiles some of your absolute faves celebrities. I'm talking wena actor, musician, bona politician, benekant zonke bonke zikhona, and we take them to Ekasi and find out who exactly they were before all the glitz, glam, lights, cameras and action.
Ekaslami, Tuesday at 6 on SABC 1. Mzansi for sure.
For 90 years, one voice has informed, challenged, and connected a nation. SAFM, South Africa's national English public radio station. Established in 1936 as the SABC's very first service, the A program evolving through the English service, Radio South Africa to SAFM in 1995, shaping thought and strengthening democracy. From a full-spectrum station to a trusted home of news and talk, SAFM continues to lead the conversations 90 years strong. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Eskom customers, change is here. Eskom is upgrading old electricity meters with modern smart meters, giving you clarity, control, and confidence. With your new meter, you'll be able to see your usage in real time, giving you the power to manage your electricity with ease. Smart meters are accurate and help as Eskom respond faster to issues. Please allow our authorized installers access to install your new meter. For more information, visit our website, Eskom, redefining for a better future.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Mokopane. The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
The more you give thanks, the more you have to be grateful for. You heard me right. The more you give thanks, the more you have to be grateful for. Let's think about that for a minute. Perhaps you've trained hard and diligently to make the swim team. When it's time for tryout, you try out and you give it your all. Unfortunately, your time isn't quick enough, and therefore, you don't make the team. You are devastated, as you should be. But Ralph Waldo Emerson said that in all things, we should give gratitude because all things contribute to our advancement. So how does not making the swim team contribute to your advancement? Sometimes in life things happen, but we can look for the positive in everything. When you didn't make the swim team, perhaps we gained courage, determination, perseverance, stick-to-itiveness, and the willingness to try out again. That's called not giving up. So when things don't happen the way we think that they ought to, just keep on living. And in all things, give thanks. Next time something happens to you that you think ought not to, find the good within the bad. There's something called positive psychology, and all that means is finding the good in the bad. Use your mind to find the good in every situation.
Kiana Bartlift is a school counselor at a county school district in Muscogee. Look, it's not always easy, right? It's not always easy trying to find the good in the bad. And sometimes bad is just bad, right? Bad is just bad. And then there are no silver linings. And we acknowledge it, we accept it as what it is. But perhaps it's about how to find the will to continue moving in the midst of the bad that has no good, the bad that has no silver lining. You're listening to The Talking Point. A warm welcome to you. My name is Kathy Mutlatlana, and I'll be with you until midday as we lead conversations that move us. Coming up on the show today, we'll start off with the open line, your national roundtable. The number to dial this morning is 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. And of course, it's your opportunity to raise any matter of national interest. I'll be getting into my own subject for the National Roundtable shortly. Coming up on the show today, it is a Tuesday, so Brian Hirsch will be joining us. We'll be talking finance in the second hour of the show. And, thank you to everybody that engages on this particular segment. I mean, we get so many requests after the show, people wanting to get in touch with Brian and really using him as the full resource that he has availed himself for while being on this platform. So I just want to acknowledge the fact that you do that, and I know that it means a great deal to Brian. There are very few people I've met who are genuinely just committed to giving back to society in their own way. He doesn't have to do it. He doesn't get paid to do it. But my word, his consistency and the way he genuinely wants to make sure that people are assisted when it comes to dealing with their matters. Nobody ever gets paid from Brian doing this work, and he gets people in his staff, people in his office, staff in his office to follow up on these matters, which is something that we really, really don't take for granted. So Brian is going to be joining us in the second hour of the show, and in the final hour, the ad hoc committee in Parliament, the SAPS ad hoc committee, is going to be continuing its work, hearing the evidence of critical witnesses as it has now entered phase 2. Today, we're expecting to hear from the former IPID head, Robert McBride. The list then is followed by Brown Mokgotsi and private investigator Paul O'Sullivan. So today we're expecting that then that committee will continue its work, hearing from Robert McBride. So we'll take you live to Parliament in the final hour of the show. So one of the issues I wanted us to speak about this morning, and perhaps really reflect on, because I believe that it's more of a reflection point that can help guide how we approach or even deal with some of these matters in future. And it's part of what, as I looked at it, I thought about the concept of black pain, and black pain as spectacle, black pain being used as spectacle. Yesterday, this horrific accident took place in Vanderbijlpark. There's no question about the travesty that it is. 11 children killed in that single car accident. These are lives that have been cut short. These are families who are literally being destroyed in a moment. There is a mother who lost 2 of her children in that accident. And we watched as, paramedics, officials, journalists arrived on scene yesterday. Many of the next of kin at this point may not even have been informed about the fact that this accident has taken place. And naturally, people are doing what anyone would do. Go to the scene of the accident. Go to the to where the tragedy has taken place, especially for families and for relatives. And at the scene of that accident, and there was just something that was striking about it, and that for me, even watching it, made me uncomfortable. And I know that this is something that to a large extent we have normalized in our society, right? But I really this morning would urge us to think about what is it that we're really doing here. So at the accident scene, before the shock had settled, before parents had even found their footing, right, the cameras were already rolling. This is what has come to be normalized in a culture of 24-hour television. Microphones were being pushed into faces. Mothers and fathers, relatives being asked, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? I have not even been able to process what has happened, and I'm being asked, what am I feeling? Some people collapsed, some people were facing, and that grief obviously becomes content. And again, this is something that has been normalized. But I want us to think and go back to even the writings of somebody like Frantz Fanon, when he wrote about black pain. And I know that this is a concept that media students, politics students would grapple with. And it's about how black pain, under systems that are shaped by colonial thinking, that it's not just experienced, right? It's displayed, it's observed, it's consumed. Black suffering is something that must be seen. It's something to prove reality, something that confirms a story, rather than something that demands justice. And here's part of the uncomfortable contrast that we often don't confront. What happens when tragedy strikes the elite? When victims are wealthy, when victims